Chapter 589. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. As night fell, the Zhuang family's residence gradually lit up with candles. The servants took down the lanterns one by one and lit them before hanging them up high. Grand Tutor Zhuang was sitting in his study, flipping through the booklets presented by Su Sifu and the others. Minister Xing and Empress Dowager Zhuang were rehabilitated, and each of them regained their status and power. However, Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't do anything when Empress Dowager Zhuang was framed. Some ministers thought that he was ungrateful and didn't care about the sibling relationship. Some ministers suggested that he knew about it and was just playing along with Empress Dowager Zhuang and others. Everyone had different opinions. This was what civil officials were good at talking about. If they were really free, they would find other things to do. What Grand Tutor Zhuang truly cared about wasn't the quarrel in the imperial court, but his gaze fell on a landscape painting on the opposite wall. Master, the steward of the Zhuang family, reported happily at the door. The royal prince is back. Outside the solemn gate of the manor, Commandery Prince knelt at the bottom of the steps. During the time he had left the Zhuang family, Grand Tutor Zhuang hadn't heard from him. However, this meant that he was still alive. If he had died, the capital would have been turned upside down. Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't deliberately seek him out and cut off all his paths of retreat. He knew that he wouldn't be able to hold on for too long, and that there would be a day when he would take the initiative to return home and beg for his help. As expected, wasn't it? Grand Tutor Zhuang arrived at the entrance of the Zhuang manor, draped in a brown-gray cloak. The servants were all dismissed by the steward. No matter how Grand Tutor Zhuang punished Royal Prince was his grandson. He could watch Royal Prince fall, but the servants could not. I'll go to the storeroom to take a look. After the grandfather and grandson met, the steward also found an excuse to leave. However, Grand Tutor Zhuang said, "No need. Just stay here." The steward was embarrassed. Ah yes, this was too difficult for him. Today, he had seen the little master make a fool of himself. In the future, when the little master became the head of the household, wouldn't he make things difficult for him? Grand Tutor Zhuang ignored the steward. He slowly walked up the steps and looked down at the lonely figure kneeling on the ground. After so many days, he should know that life outside was not easy. Raise your head. Royal Prince slowly raised his head and looked at his grandfather with a melancholic expression. Grand Tutor Zhuang originally wanted to tell her to take a look at herself and see how thin she had become. Who would have thought that the words would get stuck in his throat when he took a closer look? Was it an illusion? Why did it feel like this brat had put on weight? Royal Prince used to be a handsome and elegant man, but his cheeks were slightly sunken, and he looked slightly thin. Now, the dent in his cheek was gone. With a round face, one would be blessed with good fortune. Of course, it wasn't fat. It was just that he had grown up. He was more like the sunshine and handsome that his age should be. But wasn't that strange? He was so skinny at home. How could he have fattened himself up after going out? The main reason was that Royal Prince was forced by Guyen to work every day. He did more physical work, and his appetite increased greatly. Gradually, he grew stronger. He used to be full with just one bowl back in the manor. Now he was a super glutton who could fill 2 bowls and wouldn't feel full even if he ate 3 bowls. Grand Tutor Zhuang suddenly felt a little irritated. Grandfather. Royal Prince took the initiative to speak. Grandson is back. This sentence finally broke the short silence and pulled Grand Tutor Zhuang back from the situation where he didn't know how to react. Grand Tutor Zhuang said coldly, "You still know how to come back? I already warned you. If you dared to walk out of that door, don't think about coming back easily." Royal Prince lowered his head. Grandson knows his mistake. Grandfather, please forgive me. Grand Tutor Zhuang snorted coldly. Forgive? You make it sound so easy. In the future, everyone will be like you. If they are happy, they will stay at home, and if they are unhappy, they will run away. Then what will my Zhuang family be? Royal Prince didn't quibble anymore. He lowered his head and looked extremely remorseful. The steward hurriedly advised, "Master, Royal Prince was possessed for a moment. Since he knows his mistake, please forgive him this time on account of his filial piety to you in the past. Royal Prince won't dare to do it again in the future. Isn't that right, Royal Prince?" As he spoke, he looked at Royal Prince, and who was kneeling there with his head lowered in repentance. Royal Prince nodded gloomily. The steward is right. Grandson has suffered a lot outside. In the future, I won't dare to disobey grandfather. These words were a bit unconvincing. After all, he grew up so well even after suffering. If he didn't suffer, wouldn't he go to heaven? However, Grand Tutor Zhuang couldn't think of any reason why Royal Prince didn't suffer. After all, he had already informed all the connections that Royal Prince could rely on in advance. No one dared to take him in. Large inns and restaurants also wouldn't let him stay. During this period of time, at most, he relied on the money he had to stay in some low-class inns. "Come in and kneel." Grand Tutor Zhuang said coldly, "Yes." Royal Prince responded. The steward hurriedly walked down the steps to help Royal Prince up. His Royal Prince's weak body, before this thought flashed through his mind. Royal Prince stood up on his own. He was as nimble as he could be. The steward, Royal Prince, followed Grand Tutor Zhuang to his courtyard. Grand Tutor Zhuang had Royal Prince kneel at the door of the study. Royal Prince said in a low voice, "Let me go inside and kneel. It's embarrassing." Grand Tutor Zhuang chuckled. "You know how to embarrass yourself?" Royal Prince said considerately, "It's fine if I embarrass myself, but it's not good if I cause grandfather to lose face." Humph. Grand Tutor Zhuang flicked his sleeves coldly. In the end, he didn't chase him out. Royal Prince knelt in the middle of his study. Since Grand Tutor Zhuang wanted to give him a show of strength, he naturally wouldn't show too much concern for him. For example, he would ask how he was doing, where he was, if he ate enough, if he was wearing warm clothes, and so on. If he had asked, he might have been able to detect some small flaws and clues. Royal Prince looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang from time to time. Grand Tutor Zhuang knew, but he didn't think much of it. He just thought that this child was looking at his face. He said coldly, "Don't expect me to forgive you so quickly." "Then how long do I have to kneel?" Royal Prince asked pitifully. As soon as he said this, Grand Tutor Zhuang was angered. Was he here to admit his mistake? He hadn't even knelt for long, and he wanted to get up? Grand Tutor Zhuang said angrily, "Kneel until you learn your lesson." He originally planned to let Royal Prince return to his courtyard, but Grand Tutor Zhuang changed his mind. He should let him kneel through the floor. "Master." The steward came again. This time, his expression was somewhat hidden. Grand Tutor Zhuang understood and looked coldly at Royal Prince on the ground. "Kneel obediently." "Yes." Royal Prince agreed, feeling wronged. Grand Tutor Zhuang left the study. Royal Prince hurriedly stood up and put his ear to the gap in the door. The steward said softly, "Master, Jiangping is back. He said he has something to report to you. Should I bring him here?" Grand Tutor Zhuang looked back at the study with the door ajar and said indifferently, "Forget it. Let him wait in my tea room." The steward said, "Yes." When Grand Tutor Zhuang returned to the study, Royal Prince had already knelt down respectfully. Grand Tutor Zhuang glanced at the landscape painting on the wall. He hesitated and said to Royal Prince, "You go back first." "Thank you, grandfather." Royal Prince uncupped his hands and bowed. He supported himself on the table and stood up. After he left the courtyard, Grand Tutor Zhuang went to the tea room on the other side of the corridor. Royal Prince, on the other hand, returned after taking a stroll outside. "I left my jade pendant inside," he said to the manservant guarding the courtyard. Royal Prince was a very special existence in the Zhuang family. He could freely enter and leave Grand Tutor Zhuang's courtyard. In addition, he was personally brought back by Grand Tutor Zhuang. This meant that the conflict between grandfather and grandson had been resolved. The manservant didn't dare to stop him and let him in. Royal Prince unhurried to Grand Tutor Zhuang's study. He didn't look anywhere and went straight to the landscape painting hanging on the wall opposite the desk. He noticed that his grandfather looked at this painting a total of 3 times when he was reviewing the memorials. He looked at it once when he went out to talk to the steward and looked at it again when he returned to the courtyard. Based on his understanding of his grandfather, there must be a mystery behind this painting. He took down the painting, but to his disappointment, there was only a normal wall behind the painting. There were no hidden compartments or cracks. Royal Prince didn't understand. What's going on? Am I thinking too much? Does grandfather simply like this painting? Is this painting priceless? It did seem to be an antique painting. It was quite valuable. Royal Prince frowned. No, there must be a problem. Grandfather has such high standards. Why would he be so nervous about an antique painting? Thud. Royal Prince's hand slipped and the painting fell to the ground. The top of the painting was actually loose. He quickly squatted down and picked up the painting. Then he pulled out the top of the painting that seemed to be whole, but was actually pieced together. The painting was hollow. There was something inside. Royal Prince untilted the scroll down, and a rolled-up yellow imperial edict fell out. Royal Prince opened it and found that it was a blank imperial edict from the late emperor. It was stamped with the imperial jade seal and the late emperor's seal. If something was written on it, it would become the late emperor's will. It wouldn't be difficult to remove the emperor's throne and appoint King Ning or any of the princes or princes. Was this what Jiang Ping brought back from the people of Yan? Was this the trump card that Grand Concubine Jing left for Qin Fengyan? If Grand Concubine Jing had such a powerful thing, why didn't she take it out earlier to save her life? There was no time to deal with these doubts. Royal Prince only knew that such a terrifying thing couldn't fall into his grandfather's hands. He put away the imperial edict and hung the painting back in perfect condition. He came to the door. After some thought, he gritted his teeth and went back. It was a dark and windy night. Royal Prince held the imperial edict in his arms and walked out in a hurry. Royal Prince. Along the way, many servants and maids greeted him. He ignored all of them and walked straight to the Zhuang family's door. Royal Prince, it's so late. Chapter 590. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. The unexpected voice made Royal Prince's heart skip a beat. His body unconsciously trembled. This reaction naturally didn't escape Grand Tutor Zhuang's eyes. Grand Tutor Zhuang looked at his back coldly. It's so late. Where do you want to go? Royal Prince forced himself to calm down. He slowly turned around and tried to look normal as he said to Grand Tutor Zhuang, I left something outside. I'm going out to look for it. Grand Tutor Zhuang looked at him dangerously. Is that so? What did you leave behind? Why are you going out to look for it in the middle of the night? Royal Prince's forehead was covered in cold sweat. I left a token. It's the Zhuang family's token. Is that so? Grand Tutor Zhuang walked towards Royal Prince, and Royal Prince felt a strong aura and pressure. More sweat appeared on his forehead, and his throat moved in fear. Grand Tutor Zhuang stopped in front of him and pulled his waist. Then tell me, what is this? Royal Prince's eyes flashed, and he said embarrassedly, My token was hanging on my waist? I thought I dropped it. Grand Tutor Zhuang said coldly, Zhuang Yuang, how long are you going to pretend? Royal Prince said, Grandfather, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Grand Tutor Zhuang gritted his teeth. You don't understand? Fine, then let me ask you. What were you doing in my study just now? Royal Prince An's chest heaved up and down. He couldn't hide the guilt in his eyes. He looked at the token in Grand Tutor Zhuang's hand and said, "I was looking for this." Grand Tutor Zhuang was exasperated. "You dropped a token from outside the residence. Is there a worse excuse? Zhuang Yuheng, you're my grandson. Can't you even lie?" Royal Prince An opened his mouth. "Grandfather." Grand Tutor Zhuang looked at him coldly. "This is the entrance of the residence. There are so many servants watching. I don't want to embarrass you. Hand it over obediently." Royal Prince An avoided Grand Tutor Zhuang's sharp gaze. "What? I don't understand." Grand Tutor Zhuang sternly said, "Now you're calling me your grandson? Zhuang Yuan, you are still too inexperienced to play tricks in front of this old man. Are you going to hand it over yourself, or do you want this old man to search your body for it? This is your last chance. Don't think that I can't bear to touch you just because you're my grandson. If you dare to disobey me again, I'll treat it as if I don't have a grandson like you." "Empress Dowager?" Prince An shouted behind Grand Tutor Zhuang. Grand Tutor Zhuang subconsciously looked back. Royal Prince An broke into a run. Grand Tutor Zhuang was truly infuriated. He clenched his fists so hard that they cracked and his shoulders trembled. "Bring him back here." 2 guards rushed out of the door, and Royal Prince An was caught by them before he could run a few steps. The 2 of them carried Royal Prince An back to the gate. "Close the door." Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't want anyone passing by to look. The servant shuddered as he closed the door. Just now, he had almost let the royal prince go. He didn't know if the old master would be angry. Naturally, Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't have the time to punish these servants. He dismissed them and only left 2 of his trusted guards behind. He looked at Royal Prince An, who was detained in front of him, and said, "Do you think you can successfully leave with the things? Do you think you'll have escaped by the time I find out? Zhuang Yuheng, who gave you the confidence?" Royal Prince An didn't answer him. Instead, he asked, "Grandfather, why did you collude with the people of Yen?" Grand Tutor Zhuang narrowed his eyes. "Who told you?" Royal Prince An said, "Grandfather, you don't need to know who told me. You only need to answer me yes or no." Grand Tutor Zhuang naturally wouldn't be led by the nose by him. "So you came to steal the imperial edict? I don't care what rumors you heard outside. You better shut your mouth." Royal Prince An's eyes flashed with a strong sense of disappointment. So grandfather really colluded with the people of Yen. "Grandfather, what do you want to do? Rebel?" Grand Tutor Zhuang shouted angrily, "Kneel down." Royal Prince An didn't kneel. The guard kicked his knee and forced him to kneel on the ground. Grand Tutor Zhuang said, "Search his body." Royal Prince An said coldly, "How dare you? I'm a royal prince personally conferred by His Majesty. Don't you want your heads anymore?" The guard hesitated. Grand Tutor Zhuang said sternly, "Search him." The guard continued to search Royal Prince An's body. No matter how hard he struggled, it was useless. However, because the imperial edict wasn't a hard object, they couldn't touch it at all. Grand Tutor Zhuang paused. "Take off his clothes and tear them apart." Royal Prince An resisted with all his might. He was pressed to the ground by the 2 guards. His elbows and knees were bleeding. The 2 guards tore his clothes apart. In the end, they wished they could only leave a pair of pants. "Master, I didn't." Royal Prince An curled up his body and shivered on the cold ground. Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that he kicked him. "Where did you hide the imperial edict?" Master, it's not good. There's a fire in the study." Grand Tutor Zhuang's eyes narrowed. He looked at Royal Prince An, who was shivering on the ground. Royal Prince An's lips curled up into a smile. He said weakly, "This? Did grandfather expect this?" When Grand Tutor Zhuang rushed to the study, the fire in the study was already out of control. The steward said anxiously, "I don't know how the fire started. When I saw the fire and rushed over, the fire inside was already out of control. However, I still managed to snatch the seal and memorials on Sir's desk. That's right. When normal people encountered a fire like this, they would of course steal what they thought Grand Tutor Zhuang cared about first. They wouldn't pay attention to anything else. Grand Tutor Zhuang stood in front of the fire. He calmed down and carefully sorted out the situation. He roughly understood what had happened. First of all, Zhuang Yuheng came back with an ulterior motive. He had always trusted this grandson of his too much. Even if he ran away from home, he didn't think he could do anything worse. Secondly, he calculated that he wouldn't be able to take the imperial edict far away. He might as well hide the imperial edict in a corner of the study and burn it. When he came out of the tea room, the servant told him that Zhuang Yuheng came back once. Thus, he immediately went to the study to check the painting. When he found that the imperial edict was gone, he immediately thought that Zhuang Yuheng had stolen it. Zhuang Yuheng must have started the fire from the corner blocked by the bookshelf. He was in a hurry to get the imperial edict back. After he went in, he immediately came out. Thus, he didn't notice the small flame in the corner. Zhuang Yuheng, I haven't seen you for a few days, and you become more capable. That imperial edict was not only Qin Fengyan's trump card, but it was also Grand Tutor Zhuang's biggest trump card to turn the tables. What was the former emperor's edict? It was a legitimate and orthodox edict. Its prestige was above that of the current emperor. As long as he took out the posthumous edict to appoint the other princes and princesses as emperors, there would definitely be ministers who would follow him loyally. At that time, with his many years of power and the help of the Yan Kingdom's Nangong family, there would be nothing to worry about. But now this posthumous edict was destroyed by his most valued grandson. The anger in Grand Tutor Zhuang's heart was enough to burn Royal Prince 100 times. He angrily came to the entrance of the residence. Royal Prince's clothes were already torn. Now, he was covered by a guard's outer robe. Grand Tutor Zhuang was not a person who would easily take action. However, he couldn't hold it in anymore. Zhuang Yuheng, you are very good. Very good. You don't want to live anymore? Good. I will fulfill your wish. Guards, drag him away. Flog him to death. He didn't want this traitorous grandson. Grandfather. Zhuang Yueshi suddenly rushed over and pounced on Royal Princein. She turned to look at her grandfather. Grandfather, don't hit brother. Grand Tutor Zhuang was furious. Even you want to go against me? Zhuang Yueshi kneeled in front of him and hugged his leg. Grandfather, don't be angry with brother. I didn't do it on purpose. Please forgive brother. Grand Tutor Zhuang kicked Zhuang Yueshi away. Hurry up and do it. 2 guards held onto Royal Prince and let go of my brother. Zhuang Yueshi pounced again and bit one of the guards' wrist. What are you waiting for? Grand Tutor Zhuang yelled at Zhuang Yueshi's servant. The servant quickly went forward and pulled Zhuang Yueshi away. Zhuang Yueshi struggled with all her might. Her tears fell like rain. Grandfather, grandfather. Big brother is your biological grandson. You can't beat him to death. If you want to beat him, beat Qi. Qi is willing to take the punishment for brother. Grandfather, grandfather, please beat Qi. Don't beat brother. Don't. Grand Tutor Zhuang ignored his granddaughter's cries and pleas. He ordered someone to gag her mouth and drag her away. He looked at Royal Prince and coldly. Execute. Dong dong dong. Suddenly, there was a loud banging on the door. Grand Tutor Zhuang frowned. Who is it? Open the door. The Ministry of Justice is investigating. Those who disobey will be put in jail. Grand Tutor Zhuang ordered one of the guards to open the door with a cold face. Assistant Minister Li walked in calmly with the arrest warrant from the Ministry of Justice. He glanced at Royal Prince and who was dragged away in time. Then he cupped his hands formally at Grand Tutor Zhuang and handed over the document. Grand Tutor Zhuang, your grandson Zhuang Yuheng is suspected of a murder case. I was ordered to arrest the suspect Zhuang Yuheng and bring him to justice. I hope Grand Tutor Zhuang will not obstruct me from handling the case. Royal Prince was handcuffed and put into the prison carriage. Assistant Minister Li was released by Royal Prince and halfway through the prison carriage. Royal Prince sat in the carriage that had been waiting in the alley for a long time. As expected, he saw Xiaoang. "You are really," Royal Prince and wanted to say, "you are really daring. You even impersonated the Ministry of Justice." When he was about to say it, he remembered that this fellow could even forge an imperial edict. What else did he not dare to do? Royal Prince unraised his eyebrows. "I can get out myself without your help. No need to thank me," Xiao Hung said calmly. "Humph," Royal Prince and looked away. The two returned to Jade Water Alley. When Royal Prince and came out after changing his clothes, Princess Xinyang also came over. It was the first time Royal Prince and saw her. He did not know Xiao Heng's true identity, so he was surprised by her sudden visit. He did not know and did not dare to ask. "Where is the imperial edict? Did it really burn?" Princess Xinyang asked. The three of them sat in Xiao Heng's study. "No, I brought it out." Royal Prince took out a blank imperial edict and placed it on the table. Princess Xinyang picked up the imperial edict and touched the texture and lines on the edict with her fingertips. As expected of the late emperor's imperial edict. The paper is different from today's. It is so smooth. It is said that it was made with a special kind of silk and bamboo. It has a faint bamboo fragrance. How did you bring it out? Weren't you searched? Royal Prince unscratched his head. I was searched, but they did not expect me to sew the imperial edict there. Princess Xinyang put the imperial edict to her nose and sniffed it. She closed her eyes to feel its scent. "Where is it?" Royal Prince, "In my pants." Thud. The imperial edict in Princess Xinyang's hand fell. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964/1084014112. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 591. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all here. What did Royal Prince just say? This imperial edict was taken out from his pants. Princess Xinyang was in a bad mood. She was a woman, a princess of the imperial court. When she thought about how she had touched and smelled it in front of the two juniors, Princess Xinyang felt that she had lost 10 lifetimes worth of face. Why did you sew the imperial edict in that place for no reason? She slammed the table and shouted. Royal Prince was a junior and a subject. In addition, Princess Xinyang had a strong aura. Even the emperor was afraid of her, let alone a young royal prince. When Royal Prince spoke to her, he didn't dare to look at her to offend her. Naturally, he didn't see her intoxicated actions with the imperial edict. He was startled by Princess Xinyang's sudden anger, and finally gathered his courage to look at Princess Xinyang. Princess Xinyang was furious. Her beautiful face was filled with anger. Her cheeks and neck were red with anger. Royal Prince was confused and said blankly, "If I didn't sew it in my underpants, I couldn't take it out." He never thought of destroying the imperial edict from the start. Such an important item was a life-saving talisman in his hands. Especially for people like him who dealt with imperial power all day long. No one could guarantee that there wouldn't be a day when the monarch wouldn't be afraid of them. In the beginning, he did plan to take it out with him. But on second thought, if his grandfather found out in time, he would definitely search him. There was only one place where he wouldn't be searched, and that was his underpants. But if it was stuffed in his underpants, it would fall off easily and be touched easily. Thus, he went back to the study and sewed it on the fabric of his underpants. As for why he knew how to sew and mend, it was thanks to the difficult days in Baishui Alley. As a man, he actually learned how to sew clothes. Of course, his grandfather's thoughts were too deep. He didn't rule out the small possibility that he would really take off his underpants to check. Thus, he set the study on fire. He purposely showed flaws and covered it up to make his grandfather think that he had the imperial edict on him. Later, when the study was burned down, he showed a proud expression in front of his grandfather, making him think that he was trying to distract him so that he could set fire to the imperial edict. This way, no matter what, his grandfather would never take off his underwear again. However, he did not expect that his grandfather would be so angry that he would be beaten to death. This was beyond his expectations. He had overestimated his grandfather's affection for him. If it weren't for Xiao Hung secretly keeping an eye on him and promptly sending Assistant Minister Li to take him away, he probably would have gone to see the previous emperor with the imperial edict in his pants. However, he would not thank Xiao Lulang. Princess Xinyang was so angry that she almost died. She ferociously glared at Junwang. She was truly unable to control herself. Long Yi, castrate him. Long Yi entered in a flash and grabbed Dukan. Then, he threw him into the salt jar in the backyard. Princess Xinyang, I asked you to castrate people, not pickle vegetables. Princess Xinyang left with an ashen face. Dukan curled up at the mouth of the salt jar with a dumbfounded expression. He looked at Xiao Hung, who was walking towards him. What did I say wrong? Why was Princess Xinyang angry? Could it be that she felt that I blasphemed the imperial edict? In all honesty, I really had no other choice at that time. Xiao Hung had witnessed the entire process. He held back his laughter and pulled Dukan up from the salt jar. No, you were able to bring the imperial edict out. You made a great contribution. Then why is she still angry? Duke unmuttered and patted the salt off his body. He thought of something and said in a low voice, It seems that the rumor is true. What rumor? Xiao Hung asked. Royal Prince looked around and confirmed that Princess Xianyang wouldn't return. He then said to Xiao Hung in a small voice, Princess Xianyang is temperamental. She always abuses Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping turned against her husband because he couldn't stand her violence. The corner of Xiao Heng's mouth twitched. She can't beat Marquis Xianping, right? Dukan said, She is a princess. Marquis Xianping does not dare to fight back. Xiao Hung. As they spoke, the two returned to the study. Do you want to take a look at the imperial edict? Dukan picked up the imperial edict on the table and handed it to Xiao Hung. No need. Xiao Hung said. He calmly took out a brocade box and opened it, saying to Dukan, Here, put it inside. Oh. Dukan put the imperial edict into the brocade box. You don't even want to take a look? Aren't you afraid that it's fake? Xiao Hung said meaningfully. No, Princess Xinyang already tested it. Didn't she say that the silk paper is different and is especially smooth? Dukan nodded in realization. I think so. Xiao Hung could not take it anymore. If he held it in any longer, he would suffer internal injuries. He closed the box and said to Dukan sternly, Then I will leave first. Xiao Lulang. Dukan looked at him fixedly. I used my life to exchange for this imperial edict. Can you spare my grandfather's life because I gave it to you? Xiao Hung paused and looked at him seriously. Aren't you afraid that he will suffer a fate worse than death? After all, for an ambitious person, losing everything was the greatest torture. Dukan only looked at Xiao Hung quietly and did not speak. Xiao Hung nodded. Okay, I understand. I promise you. Dukan said gratefully, Thank you. Xiao Hung took the imperial edict and went to the residence on Vermilion Bird Avenue. Princess Xinyang washed 18 basins of water in her room, scrubbing her hands and nose until they were rotten. Eugene did not know what happened and asked Princess Xinyang, but Princess Xinyang refused to say. Young Marquis, you've come. Eugene saw Xiao Hung walk in with a brocade box in his arms, and his heart relaxed. Xiao Hung looked at the angry Princess Xinyang. To be honest, he rarely saw his mother like this. Aunt Eugene, let me take care of my mother. He suppressed the smile on his face and said. Eugene looked at Xiao Hung strangely and said, Okay, you do it. She put down the basin and turned to leave. Princess Xinyang sat on the chair and rubbed her hands as she said unhappily, "What? Are you here to laugh at me?" Xiao Hung clicked his tongue and said innocently, "Look at what you are saying. Am I, your son, that kind of person? Besides, what kind of joke do you have to laugh at? Isn't it just an imperial edict that you took out from your pants?" Xiao Lulang. Lulang was now Xiao Heng's courtesy name. She even called him by his surname, which showed how angry Princess Xinyang was. Xiao Hung obediently kept his mouth shut. Princess Xinyang saw the box in his hand and frowned. "What is this?" Xiao Hung said truthfully, "An imperial edict." Princess Xinyang was startled, then realized it was the imperial edict from the previous emperor. Her face darkened. You still dare to bring this thing here?" Xiao Hung said helplessly, "This thing is too precious. It's not safe to leave it with me." This was the truth. The child at home was too naughty. It was hard to guarantee that one day he wouldn't take it out and destroy it. After thinking it over, he could only leave it with Princess Xinyang. Princess Xinyang obviously understood this. She clenched her teeth. "Take it for Eugene." Xiao Hung held the brocade box and bowed. "As you command, mother." He turned and left. Princess Xinyang glared at him. "Come back here." Xiao Hung obediently turned around and smiled. "Mother, do you have any other orders?" Princess Xinyang said with a sullen face. "Change the way you address me." Xiao Hung bowed again and smiled from ear to ear. "Yes, Honorable Regent Princess." Princess Xinyang. After Xiao Hung handed the imperial edict to Eugene for safekeeping, he went to the adjacent room to accompany Gu Jiao. Recently, the two of them had been busy with their own matters and rarely had time to be alone. Eugene handled the imperial edict properly and returned to Princess Xinyang's room. Princess Xinyang had finally finished bathing and was sitting in front of the dressing table applying vanishing cream. A woman's hands also needed to be taken care of. "Let me do it," Eugene said. Princess Xinyang handed her the vanishing cream. Eugene used her fingertips to scrape a bit, then lifted Princess Xinyang's left hand and gently smeared it on the back of her hand. "Princess, I just heard from the young duke that the previous emperor left behind a blank imperial edict. Without that imperial edict, I'm afraid that Grand Tutor Zhuang won't be able to cause any more waves." Princess Xinyang pursed her lips. "Humph." Eugene smiled gently. "The young duke is really capable." Princess Xinyang chuckled. "What can he do? The imperial edict was stolen by Zhuang Yuheng. He just sent someone to bring Zhuang Yuheng out." After applying the vanishing cream, Eugene gently massaged Princess Xinyang's hand. Why would Zhuang Yuheng be willing to steal the imperial edict for the young duke? Has the princess never thought of this question? Zhuang Yuheng and Grand Tutor Zhuang had a falling out, and no one in the capital dared to take him in. Only our young duke was bold enough. Princess Xinyang pursed her lips. Eugene continued, "To do what ordinary people can't, to think what ordinary people can't. This is the young duke's talent. The young duke is a good child with foresight, strategy, courage, and breadth of mind." How could Princess Xinyang not know? She just wanted to hear others praise her son. Eugene smiled and placed her tender left hand on her thigh. Then she picked up her right hand and began to gently apply the vanishing cream. Grand Tutor Zhuang first lost the protection of Empress Dowager Zhuang. Then he lost Prince Ning as a bargaining chip. Now he doesn't even have a chance to turn the tables. I reckon that the Zhuang family's luck has run out and there's nothing to fear. But the people of Yen are a bit of a headache. What does the princess plan to do? Princess Xinyang said thoughtfully, "I want to kill someone with a borrowed knife." Eugene was slightly startled. Whose knife does the princess want to borrow? Princess Xinyang looked coldly at the setting sun outside the window. The people of Yen. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/8964-_89642826/1084000682. HTML Genius, memorize this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 592. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. In the room next door, Xiaoheng peeled an orange for Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao had been resting for 4 days. The wounds on her arms and waist were healing well, and the wounds on her wrists were also recovering well. In another 2 or 3 days, the bandages would be completely removed. Gu Jiao had never rested for so long. She was about to grow mold in the room. She seemed to understand Mo Qinshua's frustration a little. "I'm fine. I can go back now," Gu Jiao said as she sat on the bed. "No," Xiaoheng refused. "Dr. Song said that you have to rest for at least 7 days. In fact, it was reasonable to say that she should rest for 10 days to half a month. However, Dr. Song and Xiaoheng both understood that she wasn't someone who could stay cooped up in the room for so many days. In addition, her injuries did heal faster than ordinary people, so they reduced it to 7 days. Gu Jiao, oh. Xiaoheng chuckled softly and handed her a few pieces of tangerine that had been peeled off. He also knew that she was bored and had gone to the yamen less these 2 days. He basically stayed here to accompany her. Imperial Tutor Zhuang's matter has been taken care of. Zhuang Yuheng went to get it. He talked to her to relieve her boredom. Who would have thought that old concubine Jing would have a blank imperial edict from the late emperor? Gu Jiao asked, "Why didn't she take it out earlier?" Xiaoheng continued to peel the remaining orange petals. "I'm guessing that this imperial edict either fell into the hands of the people of Yen long ago, or it was hidden somewhere. Grand concubine Jing only found it before she died, but she didn't have the chance to get it herself. So she left a letter for Qin Fengyan to get it. However, the Yen kingdom found out that Qin Fengyan was on her way to get the imperial edict. So they snatched it in advance and used it to make a deal with Qin Fengyan." "What you said makes a lot of sense." Gu Jiao ate a piece of orange. It was so sweet. Xiaoheng looked at her bulging cheeks. She looked like a little squirrel looking for food. He couldn't help but laugh. "I'm just guessing, but that's not important. Eat slowly." "Yes." Although he said so, his hands grabbed a few more pieces and stuffed them into his mouth. "Why do you like eating oranges so much?" Xiaoheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He handed her the other half of the tangerine. She took it and pointed at the oranges on the plate. His meaning was clear. He wanted more. Xiaoheng raised his eyebrows and said, "You're getting better at ordering your husband around." "Hmm?" Gu Jiao nodded and admitted generously. Xiaoheng smiled and peeled another orange for her. This time, Gu Jiao did not eat by herself. Instead, she said to him, "You eat too." Xiaoheng said, "I don't like this." Gu Jiao asked, "Then what do you like to eat?" Xiaoheng looked at her deeply and said, "Nothing." He lowered his eyes and continued peeling the orange. As he peeled the orange, he suddenly felt the light in front of him dim. Gu Jiao's body was leaning towards him. He held his breath and his eyelashes trembled. Gu Jiao tilted her head and reached out her hand to pinch his chin. His heart skipped a beat. "Oh, there's something dirty." Gu Jiao looked left and right. She took away a bit of cotton wool that was stuck to his cheek. Xiaoheng's face turned red in embarrassment. So it was cotton wool? He thought that she was going to, "Husband, what's wrong?" Gu Jiao looked at him and asked. "No, it's nothing." Xiaoheng lowered his eyes in disappointment. He placed the peeled orange on the table and began to peel the tangerine for her. Gu Jiao's lips curved. She looked at that handsome and resentful face. She leaned forward and gently kissed the corner of his lips. Xiaoheng was stunned. He stared at her, dumbfounded. Gu Jiao did not pull back. She just stared at him, so close. Gu Jiao blinked. Xiao Heng's heart was filled with heat. He was already at an age where he was full of vigor. How could he resist her teasing? Xiao Heng's throat moved. He looked at her with desire. A righteous villain in his heart was shouting no, no, no. Then, another evil villain slapped the righteous villain to death. Xiao Heng reached out, grabbed the back of her head, and leaned forward. Just as he was about to kiss her, there was a sudden cough at the door. Cough, cough. It was Princess Xinyang's voice. Xiao Heng stumbled and bumped into the bedpost next to Gu Jiao. There was a big bump on his head. Eugene and the servant girls covered their mouths and snickered. Princess Xinyang couldn't bear to watch. If she had come alone, she could have snuck away. But she had brought a group of people. So many pairs of eyes had seen them. She couldn't pretend to be blind even if she wanted to. Everyone leave. She frowned. Yes. Eugene snickered and left with the servant girls. Princess Xinyang looked at her silly 19-year-old son, who was still a virgin. Good for you. It's broad daylight. Don't you know how to close the door? Gu Jiao said, You're not allowed to be fierce to my husband. Princess Xinyang said, So what if I'm fierce to him? Xiao Heng's face was flushed red. It was fine if he kissed his wife in broad daylight, but he was also seen by his mother and Eugene. The rules he had learned since elementary school did not allow him to do so. He had gone overboard just now. What was worse was that he had gone overboard, but he hadn't enjoyed the pleasure of going overboard. He'd almost kissed her. What a shame. Cough. Xiao Heng stood between Gu Jiao and Princess Xinyang. He said to Princess Xinyang seriously, Why did mother come? Princess Xinyang chuckled. I can't come, right? Did I disturb your good time? Xiao Heng, don't you know there's something called a door in this world? You can do whatever you want if you close the door. Gu Jiao poked her head out from behind Xiao Heng. That's not exciting. Xiao Heng. Wife, don't say any more. Xiao Heng broke out in a cold sweat and hurriedly supported Princess Xinyang's arm. He said embarrassedly, Jiao Jiao needs to recuperate. I'll help you out for a walk. Humph. Princess Xinyang flicked her sleeves and turned around. Gu Jiao turned her face and snorted. Humph. Princess Xinyang's eyes widened as she turned around. Hey, this girl is still. Xiao Heng blocked her with his body and helped her out. Aya, the flowers in the courtyard are blooming. They're blooming really well. As expected of my mother's flowers. Even the palace gardeners can't grow them as well as you. Princess Xinyang was pushed out of the room by her son. Xiao Heng supported her with one hand and closed Gu Jiao's door with the other. Princess Xinyang glared at him unhappily. You've forgotten about your mother when you have a wife. Xiao Heng said with a wronged expression. Look at what you're saying. Am I that kind of person? Princess Xinyang raised her eyebrows. Then let me ask you. Xiao Heng sighed and interrupted her. You and Jiao Jiao fell into the water at the same time. Who should I save first, right? I must save you. Jiao Jiao and I will save you together. Jiao Jiao knows how to swim. Princess Xinyang. Princess Xinyang didn't really come to pick a quarrel. She snorted a few times and talked about the proper business. She was going out and would return in a few days. She had already warned the crown prince about the matters of the imperial court, so there wouldn't be too big of an accident. Don't leave the capital if you have nothing to do. Wait for me to return. Okay. After warning her son, Princess Xinyang took Yujin and Long Yi and sat in the carriage. Yujin asked, Princess, where are we going? Princess Xinyang said, We're going to find another force of Yan Empire. She had always suspected that the group of people who assassinated Xiao Heng didn't dare to make a move in the capital because there was another force of Yan Empire in the capital. This force might not necessarily be there to protect Xiao Heng. It was very likely that they were the spies of Yan Empire in other countries. They didn't interfere with the affairs of other countries. They only monitored the intelligence of other countries. Nangong family should be acting without authorization. They couldn't be discovered by Yan Empire. Otherwise, the consequences would be very serious. Princess Xinyang opened a corner of the curtain and said to Yujin, Look at the people on the street. Each and every one of them is dressed like ordinary people. But maybe one of them is a spy from another country. A spy from Yan Empire, a spy from Jin Empire, a spy from Liang Empire. Yujin said, so many spies? Princess Xinyang said, we also have spies in other countries. Yujin was slightly surprised. Shang Empire also has spies? Princess Xinyang said indifferently, Liang Empire, Yan Empire and Jin Empire still don't have spies. Yujin doubtfully said, then how do we know which one is a spy from Yan Empire? Guess. Princess Xinyang said. The carriage stopped outside a beautiful cloth store. The coachman got off and negotiated with the owner of the cloth store. Not long after, the owner personally got on the carriage and reported, replying to Princess, that pharmacist from Yan Empire wants to go out of the city to pick herbs today. I have already sent people to spread the news that there are herbs he wants in Songbei Mountain. Behind the cloth store was the underground martial arts field. No one knew that this inconspicuous cloth store was actually a spy set up by Princess Xinyang many years ago. Yujin frowned and said, Princess, are you suspecting that the pharmacist from Yan Empire is a spy from Zhao Empire? Isn't this too blatant? Isn't he hiding his identity from Yan Empire? Princess Xinyang said coldly, sometimes, the more open you are, the less people suspect you. Besides, Zhao Empire is just a lower country. Yan Empire doesn't need to be too careful. Whether he is the one I am looking for, we will know after following him. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_89642826/108380271. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 593. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. The pharmacist of the Yen state came to the underground martial arts arena more than 10 years ago. Princess Xinyang didn't pay much attention to this person. To be exact, she didn't pay much attention to the underground martial arts arena. There was fighting and killing there all day long. After going there once or twice, she lost interest. After the pharmacist of the Yen state came out of the underground martial arts arena, he sat in an ordinary carriage. Including the coachman, there were 4 accompanying guards. Princess Xinyang didn't know martial arts and couldn't see the depth of their skills. But according to the information she had, the pharmacist of the Yen state had been in the Zhao kingdom for a long time and had never been defeated by anyone. Almost no one in the underground martial arts arena dared to challenge his authority. Follow from a distance. Don't let him find out. Princess Xinyang ordered the coachman. The coachman replied, yes. In broad daylight, there were many carriages heading towards the West City Gate. Even if they followed behind, it was not easy to tell that they were doing it on purpose. Once they left the West City Gate, they would have to pay more attention. However, Princess Xinyang was already prepared. Her carriage had the insignia of the relay station. The sky was dark. It looks like it's going to rain. Eugene looked at the sky outside the window and said, Princess Xinyang said, it's a bit stuffy in the morning. It's probably going to rain. It's okay. He can go to the village to hide from the rain. The carriage followed at a moderate speed. When it approached the official road of Songbei Mountain, the pharmacist of the Yen state stopped. The pharmacist of the Yen state left the coachman to look after the carriage. He took 3 guards, each with a basket of herbs, and went up the mountain to pick herbs. The pharmacist of the Yen state didn't go out of the city to pick herbs at a fixed frequency. Sometimes he didn't go out once a year. Sometimes he was out for half a month. It had been half a year since the pharmacist of the Yen state went out to pick herbs. If they missed this chance, they didn't know how long they would have to wait. After all, it wasn't always possible to find the herbs he needed and lure him out. Princess Xinyang's carriage also stopped. Eugene looked at the pharmacist of the Yen state through the gap in the curtain. Princess, they went into the mountain. Princess Xinyang also looked through the gap. It's good that they went into the mountain. She had already asked people to plant the herbs in the mountains. To be honest, the herbs were not very expensive, but they were not commonly seen in this season. She also spent a lot of effort to buy them from others. Long Yi. Princess Xinyang gestured. Long Yi flashed away. Princess Xinyang was not sure if the imperial advisor of the Yen kingdom was from the Yen kingdom, so she needed to test him. The first step was to lead him to the Nangong family. The herb was planted on the hillside, and the Yen kingdom's pharmacist soon found it. He was overjoyed. This kind of herb had to be dug out along with its roots, otherwise it would lose its medicinal efficacy. He took out a shovel. Then, squatting down, he dug out the medicinal herbs. And just when he was about to carefully put the medicinal herbs into a box and put it into the medicine basket, Long Yi suddenly came over. Long Yi snatched his box and ran away without hesitation. Medicine Master, are you all right? A guard hurried over. Long Yi's action was too fierce, and the Yen kingdom's pharmacist fell on his butt. He stood up with the help of the guard, patted his trousers, and said, I'm fine. After coming to the Zhao country for so many years, he was already used to speaking the Zhao country's language, and the guards were also the same. I'll chase after him, that guard said. The Yen kingdom's pharmacist waved his hand. It's just a stalk of herb. If he wants it, then give it to him. There's no need to chase. Princess Xinyang waited in the carriage for a long time, and as a result, she saw the Yen kingdom's pharmacist continue to bury his head in picking herbs. Princess Xinyang, in any case, he's a pharmacist from the Yen kingdom. His herbs were stolen, and he didn't even chase after them. Princess Xinyang was angry. Who was it? Eugene thought for a bit and said embarrassedly. Could it be that Long Yi's action was too fast? And no one saw that he was a person. A shadow flashed past. She probably thought that he was a monkey from the mountains. Princess Xinyang thought this was a possibility. Long Yi, go again. Don't be too fast. He couldn't be fast, he had to be slow. Long Yi was enlightened. He came to the side of the Yen kingdom's pharmacist very, very slowly and reached out his hand. It was as if he was in slow motion, and he snatched the herb from his hand. Then he turned around slower than a tortoise, moved his legs slower than a seahorse, and turned his head slower than a sloth. It was as if he was talking to the Yen kingdom's pharmacist. Come, chase me, yeah, Yen kingdom's pharmacist. The guard beside him said in a low voice. The Yen kingdom's pharmacist shook his head. I thought he was a monkey, but it turns out he's a fool. Forget it, ignore him. A fool was already pitiful enough. What was going on with chasing after him? Then Long Yi's seduction failed. Princess Xinyang held her forehead. Long Yi, can you be a bit more normal? I'll do it myself, Princess Xinyang said seriously. Eugene looked at her worriedly. Princess, how will you do it? Honey trap. Princess Xinyang said coldly. I'll go find him and say I'm lost. I'll have him give me a ride and send me to the relay station. Eugene looked up and down at Princess Xinyang. You don't look like someone who can get lost. Princess Xinyang glanced at her and said, I was robbed by a fool. Can't I? Eugene laughed hollowly. Okay, you're the princess. You have the final say. You're not allowed to follow me, she ordered Long Yi. Princess Xinyang elegantly got off the carriage. As a princess of a country, even in the depths of a mountainous area, she was calm. Princess Xinyang raised her chin and lifted her skirt. Like a proud peacock, she walked towards the mountainous area. The mountain road was rugged, and after walking a few steps, she stepped on her own skirt. With a cry, she rolled down the slope and fell flat on her face with her mouth full of mud. Eugene sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Long he covered his eyes. But because of this fall, the Yen Kingdom's pharmacist heard her scream. The Yen Kingdom's pharmacist sent his subordinates to check what was going on. A guard found the dazed Princess Xinyang in a ravine. At this moment, her jewelry had been sent flying, and her hair was messed up. Her hair was a mess, and her body was covered in mud. She really did look like a madam who had fallen on hard times. Someone fell down at the foot of the mountain. The bodyguard reported. "Let's go take a look," the Yen Kingdom's pharmacist said. The Yen Kingdom's pharmacist went to the foot of the mountain and let the bodyguard pull the person out of the gully. Princess Xinyang's face was covered in mud. The Yen Kingdom's pharmacist naturally knew medical skills, but he didn't want to touch her body without her consent. He simply checked her pulse through her sleeve. The pulse doesn't look like a big problem. I don't know if there are any other internal injuries. Saying this, he looked all around. Eugene and Long hurriedly hid in the carriage. Their carriage was hidden behind a row of big trees. If they didn't walk over, they wouldn't find it. The Yen Kingdom's pharmacist helplessly said, "Go get a stretcher. First, carry her into the carriage." Yes. 2 bodyguards went to the carriage and took a stretcher. They carried Princess Xinyang in. The Yen Kingdom's pharmacist had almost finished gathering the herbs. He also sat in the carriage. The bodyguard asked, "Pharmacist, where are we going?" The Yen Kingdom's pharmacist replied, "There's a relay station in front. Let's go there." Princess Xinyang had never expected that her beauty scheme would fail. In the end, it became a scheme of injuring herself to gain sympathy. But it wasn't bad. It was fine as long as she could fool him. When the carriage arrived at the relay station, Princess Xinyang pretended to be in a daze and opened her eyes. Her acting skills were somewhat lacking compared to the old chancellor and Xiao Hong. But compared to Gu Jiao, she was still a lot better. At least, she didn't give herself away. Plus, she was already in a daze from the fall. "My home is in front," she said weakly. Since it was in front, then he might as well help her to the end. The Yen Kingdom's pharmacist let them continue forward. In the end, after walking for a long time, the Yen Kingdom's pharmacist asked, "Madam, which place is in front?" The Princess Xinyang pretended to be unconscious. It's in front." After walking for another long time, the Yen Kingdom's pharmacist asked, "Are you sure you didn't remember the wrong way?" The Princess Xinyang continued weakly, "No, my home is really in front. It's a villa. Did you pass by it?" "No." The Yen Kingdom's pharmacist looked out the window. At this moment, a guard on horseback suddenly pointed ahead and said, "Pharmacist, there's a villa over there. Is that your home?" The Yen Kingdom's pharmacist looked at the Princess Xinyang. The Princess Xinyang closed her eyes and fainted on the spot. The Yen Kingdom's pharmacist sighed. "Forget it, let's go and ask first." The coachman drove the carriage over. As they got closer, the coachman muttered, "Whose villa? Why is it built near a cemetery?" The carriage stopped. A guard got off the horse and knocked on the door. "Is anyone there? Is anyone there? We're just passing by. Your madam is injured." "Is it your madam? Hey, is anyone there?" The guard turned back strangely. "Pharmacist, there doesn't seem to be anyone." The Princess Xinyang's eyelids twitched. "No one? Or was there someone who didn't dare to open the door? Maybe the villa is too big and the people inside can't hear. Go in and take a look." "Yes. Don't break other people's things." "Yes, pharmacist." The guard pushed open the courtyard door. The door wasn't locked from the inside, so they weren't considered breaking in. "Is anyone there?" the guard asked loudly as he searched the villa. However, after strolling around, the guard was confused. "Pharmacist, there's no one in the villa." The Princess Xinyang sat up. "What do you mean there's no one?" The Yen Kingdom's pharmacist looked at her in astonishment. "You're awake? Is this your family's manner?" The Princess Xinyang didn't care about her aching body. She gritted her teeth and got off the carriage. She entered the villa and found that it was empty, just as the guard said. There wasn't a single person in sight. How could this be? Where did everyone go? The Princess Xinyang frowned and stood in place. Her mind raced. She thought of something, and her expression changed. Oh no, we've been tricked. Outside the capital, there was a moat where one could row a boat on it. From the west gate to the south gate, it would take less than 2 hours to reach the destination. Outside the south gate, dozens of cargo ships came ashore one after another. Who are you? The city's guards stopped the caravan. The leading merchant smiled, took out his travel permit and a heavy bag of gold, and handed it to him. This humble one is in the business of a cloth store. These are all silks that this humble one brought from the south. The guard took the gold and wandered around the long caravan for a while. He took out 2 of the boxes and checked them. They were indeed silk. All this silk is yours. Yes, it's all mine. Every car needs to be inspected. It's my duty, my duty. Go ahead and check. Every time a carriage passed, the guard would pick a box to check. Sometimes it was the top box, sometimes it was the bottom box. No matter how he checked, it was silk. All right, let's all pass. The guard said. Yes. The leader of the merchants smiled and led his caravan into the city. In a tea house near the city gate, an old man and a middle-aged man in a black robe sat facing each other in a room on the 2nd floor. The 2 of them looked at the caravan through the window. The leader of the merchants nodded to the old man without batting an eyelid. The old man smiled and took a sip of tea. Princess Xinyang didn't expect that we would play an empty fort strategy for her, right? The man in the black robe said with satisfaction, Grand Tutor Zhuang is wise and resourceful. Admirable. The old man, Grand Tutor Zhuang, waved his hand and smiled. General Nangong is exaggerating. If General Nangong didn't trust me and told me that Xiao Lulang was Xiao Hung, how could I have thought of keeping an eye on Princess Xinyang? General Nangong said, this Princess Xinyang is very powerful. She actually guessed why we couldn't make a move in the capital and let our Yen kingdoms Changfeng Shi out. If we hadn't left early, we would have been discovered by Changfeng Shi. Changfeng Shi served the Yen kingdom's royal family. Although the Nangong family was strong, they didn't dare to steal the royal family's edge. Grand Tutor Zhuang said without restraint, now that she has led Changfeng Shi out, you can make a move in the capital. General Nangong said meaningfully, I didn't even tell Qin Feng Yan about Xiao Liulang's identity, but I told Grand Tutor. It turns out that I made the right bet. Grand Tutor is indeed a more suitable ally than Qin Feng Yan. Grand Tutor Zhuang smiled. I've eaten more salt than they have rice. General Nangong won't be disappointed if you cooperate with me. They thought that I would obediently surrender without an imperial edict. If they make my life difficult, then no one will have a good life. I'd like to see what the Empress Dowager will do after Xiao Hung falls into my hands. Between the Emperor and Xiao Hung, she'll only protect one. I'd like to see who she'll protect. If she protects the Emperor, she'll betray herself, offend the Gu family, and also offend Princess Xinyang and Marquis Xianping. But if she protects Xiao Hung, she'll kill the Emperor, betray the royal family, and betray the whole world. Princess Xinyang is trapped outside the city, and Marquis Xianping hasn't returned from his campaign. General Nangong, this is a great opportunity for you to make a move. Even the heavens are helping you. Sure enough, cooperating with Grand Tutor Zhuang was the right choice, General Nangong said with satisfaction. After this is done, I want Xiao Heng's head and that girl's head. That girl killed one of my masters, and I want to avenge him. Grand Tutor Zhuang smiled faintly. Don't worry, they'll all belong to General Nangong. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_896/1083777040. HTML Genius, memorize this website's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bqg mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 594. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. Vermilion Bird Avenue. Little Jing Kong didn't go back to Clearwater Alley after school. Instead, he pestered Lu Quan to come here to find Gu Jiao. Lu Quan knew that Gu Jiao was recuperating. He didn't want the little guy to know the truth, so he deliberately said that he didn't know the way. Little Jing Kong patted his chest and said, "I've been here before. I remember the way." Little Jing Kong was the most difficult child to fool in the family. Lu Quan had no choice but to bring him here. Gu Jiao's injury had greatly improved, but her wrist and waist were still wrapped in gauze. The little guy could tell that Gu Jiao was injured at a glance. Little Jing Kong couldn't bear to blame Gu Jiao for hiding the truth from him. He went to the study to find his bad brother-in-law, who was writing a letter. He put his hands behind his back and said in a deep voice, "You're a bad brother-in-law who lies." "How did I lie?" Xiao Hung asked. "Jiao Jiao is obviously injured, but you didn't tell me," Little Jing Kong said bitterly. "Just because of this?" Xiao Hong smiled faintly and said, "I didn't lie to you. I just didn't tell you the whole truth. My mother does have an old problem of angina, and Jiao Jiao is here to accompany her." Little Jing Kong frowned and thought carefully. What he said seemed to make sense, but why did he feel that something was wrong? "Well, have you finished your homework today?" Xiao Hong decisively changed the topic. "Have you memorized the poetry collection of the Yen Kingdom that Ming'er sent you last time?" "I'm almost done, but there are a few that I don't know," Little Jing Kong said with his hands on his hips, "but I've already made progress." "Don't try to change the topic. I'm not a child anymore. You can't fool me anymore." Xiao Heng's mouth twitched. The little monk's ability had improved. He knew that he shouldn't be led by the nose. "Also, you're only 5 years old. If you're not a child, then what are you?" Little Jing Kong crossed his arms, stomped his feet, and snorted. "I don't care. You're wrong." Xiao Hung raised his eyebrows. "Do you think that I'm wrong to hide it from you? Or are you jealous because I accompanied Jiao Jiao?" Little Jing Kong was hit where it hurt. He was so angry that his little face turned red. Humph. Bad brother-in-law. Dr. Song couldn't stand it anymore. How old was he? How could he bully a child? He called out from the courtyard, "Jing Kong, I'm going to brew medicine for Dr. Gu. Do you want to come with me?" The sense of mission of boiling medicine for Gu Jiao Jiao overcame the desire to win the argument with his bad brother-in-law. Little Jing Kong angrily glared at his bad brother-in-law and stomped his little feet to go out. In fact, Dr. Song boiled the water and opened the medicine bag. Little Jing Kong was only responsible for pouring the herbs into the jar. After that, he obediently squatted beside the jar and guarded it. Gu Jiao Jiao didn't like to drink medicine. Because it was boiled by Little Jing Kong, she gave him face and drank it. They had dinner at Vermilion Bird Street. There were only a few of them. Little Jing Kong asked strangely, "Why don't I see the princess and Long Yi? And Aunt Yujin?" They went out. Xiao Hung said they might come back in a few days. Gu Jiao Jiao looked at Xiao Hung. Xiao Hung said in a low voice, "Nothing, they went to deal with that group of people." After dinner, Little Jing Kong hugged a small pillow and went to Gu Jiao Jiao's bed. He learned to be obedient. He didn't ask his bad brother-in-law whether he could stay here or not, because if he did, his bad brother-in-law would definitely not agree. He simply climbed onto the bed and snuggled into the quilt like a little pig. Then he lay down beside Gu Jiao Jiao. Gu Jiao Jiao was looking at the music score. This was the music score from Little Jing Kong's junk. She only looked at it when she had nothing to do. Little Jing Kong excitedly rolled around in the quilt. Jiao Jiao. Gu Jiao Jiao looked at this soft little guy beside her. Little Jing Kong looked at the music score in her hand and asked, Jiao Jiao, do you like to look at music scores? Just looking. She didn't say whether she liked it or not. As the top agent in the organization, she was actually a cold-blooded killer. How could she like art? Little Jing Kong said, I like to look at music scores. Gu Jiao Jiao asked, why? Little Jing Kong rolled his eyes and said, well, it's beautiful. Even if it was beautiful, he hadn't seen it before. Gu Jiao Jiao tucked in the quilt for him and said, go to sleep. Little Jing Kong obediently closed his eyes. He was just pretending to be strange. In fact, he wasn't sleepy at all. After a while, he quietly opened his eyes. His small body moved in the quilt and tightly clung to Gu Jiao Jiao. Gu Jiao Jiao saw through his little movements, but didn't say anything. She laughed and flipped through the music score in her hand. Little Jing Kong suddenly shouted. What's wrong? Gu Jiao Jiao asked. Little Jing Kong turned over and lay on his stomach on the bed. His small finger pointed at Gu Jiao Jiao's waist and said, Jiao Jiao, you also have a flower here. Gu Jiao Jiao was wearing a short jacket and pajamas. She didn't care that the corner of her pajamas was sticking up, revealing her slender and snow-white waist. Gu Jiao Jiao couldn't see the position of her waist. She said, oh, is it a very big flower? Yes, it's this big. Little Jing Kong gestured with his fingers. It was quite small, about the size of a knuckle. It should be a birthmark. Did she have so many birthmarks on her small body? Little Jing Kong pointed at her waist and asked curiously, but why isn't this flower red? It's green. He liked red flowers. But if it grew on Jiao Jiao's body, then a green one was not bad either. Gu Jiao Jiao couldn't see it herself. But even if she saw it, she wouldn't care. She even compromised with the birthmark on her face, not to mention the invisible one on her back. Gu Jiao Jiao patted the little guy's head and said, your hair has grown a little longer. You can tie it into a ponytail soon. Go to sleep. Sleep early and wake up early. You'll grow taller. Okay. This time, little Jing Kong closed his eyes and really fell asleep after rolling on the bed a few times. Xiao Hung pushed the door open and entered. He glanced at Gu Jiao Jiao's small bag under the quilt and said, is he asleep? Yes, Gu Jiao Jiao said. Then I'll send him back. Xiao Hung said. He seemed to be afraid that Gu Jiao Jiao would misunderstand, so he explained, there will be classes at the Imperial College tomorrow. This road is too congested in the morning. It's too late to go to the Imperial College from here. Gu Jiao Jiao closed the music score and said, okay. Xiao Hung picked up the sleeping little guy from the quilt and put his clothes on him. The little guy didn't wake up, no matter how hard he tried. Xiao Hung poked the little guy's chubby little face and turned to Gu Jiao Jiao and said, remember to take the medicine later. I'll come back after sending him back. Gu Jiao Jiao agreed again with a calm look. Okay. Xiao Hung carried the little guy out of the yard and handed him to Lu Quan. Take Jing Kong back. Ah yes. Lu Quan thought, didn't you want to send Jing Kong back in person? Why don't you send him back? Xiao Hung arranged a dragon shadow guard and Lu Quan to accompany him. With Gu Yan's shadow guard armor, they would be safe along the way. After Lu Quan got into the carriage with little Jing Kong, he found that Xiao Hung got into another carriage. He wondered, it's so late. Is Lu Lang going out? Xiao Hung said, there's something going on in the Ministry of Justice. I have to go there. Oh, no wonder he couldn't send little Jing Kong back in person. It turned out that he was tied up with official business. Lu Quan left with little Jing Kong. Xiao Hung said to the coachman, let's go. Yes. The long street was silent. Xiao Heng's carriage didn't go in the direction of the Ministry of Justice. Instead, it went all the way to the east of the city. The coachman driving the carriage was a shadow guard of the princess residence. Shadow guards were much more alert than ordinary people. When they turned into another quiet street, the shadow guard's ears suddenly twitched. Lord Xiao, someone is chasing after us. Xiao Hung said seriously, "Don't stop. Keep going. Speed up." Yes. The shadow guard tightened the reins and whipped the horse. The horse felt the pain and sped up in the night. In the carriage, Xiao Hang's expression became vigilant. The shadow guard said again, "Lord, there are people coming from the north and south. There are a lot of them. We're going to be outflanked." Xiao Hung clenched his fists. "Charge." The shadow guard gritted his teeth. Yes. Now that there was no one in front of them, the shadow guard increased the speed of the carriage to the maximum. Fortunately, Princess Xinyang was using first-class Fergana horses, so there was no need to talk about their combat power. "Turn left," Xiao Hung said. The shadow guard tightened the reins and turned the carriage into the alley on the left. Almost as soon as they entered the alley, two groups of people came from both ends of the original street. If they hadn't entered the alley just now, they would have been blocked from the front and the back by now. "Turn right," Xiao Hung said. "Turn around." "Charge." "Turn left." Xiao Hung relied on his familiarity with the capital's terrain to forcefully avoid the pursuit of three groups of people. But in the end, this was just a coincidence. In the face of absolute encirclement, he had no choice but to admit defeat. Not long after entering the outskirts of the city, Xiao Heng's carriage was surrounded on a small path that was rarely visited by people. On both sides of this path were embankments. Ahead was a canyon, and behind was a large open space. The canyon and open space were already filled with pursuers. Xiao Hung could only run into the embankments, but even if he ran, he wouldn't be able to escape. The embankments couldn't move the carriage. He also couldn't outrun these experts on foot. The pursuers in the canyon had clearly come from another path. The person in the lead was the cloaked Imperial Tutor Zhuang. Now that things had progressed to this point, Imperial Tutor Zhuang didn't bother to hide his identity. He took off his bamboo hat and looked at Xiao Heng's carriage with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Xiao Hung, oh Xiao Hung, do you think that you are the only one familiar with the capital's terrain?" Since he could call out Xiao Heng's name, it was enough to show that he already knew Xiao Heng's identity. Xiao Hung coldly lifted the curtain and looked at Imperial Tutor Zhuang on his horse through the darkness of the night. "Imperial Tutor Zhuang, I trust you have been well since we last met. Between you and me, there is no need for pleasantries. This old man's goal today is very simple." "Oh, let me guess. Are you going to kill me or capture me? Capture first, then kill." Xiao Hung turned his head and looked behind him through the back window of the carriage. Imperial Tutor Zhuang sneered. "No need to look. The people who should be here are all here. You can't escape." Behind them were hundreds of Yen Kingdom's Dragon Shadow Guards. They didn't wear masks like the Zhao Kingdom's Dragon Shadow Guards. Instead, they wore black cloaks. The hood of the cloak covered their faces. In front of this group of people, there was a tall and sturdy middle-aged man dressed in extraordinary clothing. "It must be that General Nangong," Imperial Tutor Zhuang sneered. "I know what you are planning. From the beginning, you guessed that Princess Xinyang's plan had already been leaked. You knew that the Yen Kingdom would take the opportunity to enter the capital. You also guessed that this old man would help them. So you wanted to play the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. This is the only way to the Langshan barracks. You wanted to lure us into the Gu army's sphere of influence. Gu Chengfeng is not here, and the old marquis is recuperating at home. Let me guess, the Gu family's second young master is currently in the barracks, resting on his spear. It's a pity that you didn't expect us to kidnap you on the way here. When you still don't appear at the appointed time, Gu Chengfeng will come out to find you. But do you think he will be able to find you?" Xiao Hung cracked his knuckles. "Imperial Tutor Zhuang, repent and be saved." Imperial Tutor Zhuang laughed arrogantly. "This old man guessed correctly, didn't he? Then this old man will continue to guess for you. Are there mechanisms and formations set up in the canyon ahead? Even if the Gu army doesn't arrive in time, you can still kill most of us in the formations and mechanisms." Xiao Heng's expression changed. Imperial Tutor Zhuang took in Xiao Heng's expression and understood that he had guessed correctly. He laughed loudly. Xiao Heng, oh Xiao Heng, I have to say that your plan is truly flawless. You are even more resourceful than this old man's grandson, Zhuang Yuheng. If it weren't for the fact that you have always opposed this old man really wanted to properly cultivate you. Unfortunately, you are the son of Marquis Xianping, so you are destined to be this old man's stumbling block. How about it? Does it feel good to be 1 foot tall, while the devil is 10 feet tall? Xiao Heng clenched his fists tightly. General Nangong picked 10 powerful dragon shadow guards. You guys, go take a look at the canyon. Yes. The 10 people urged their horses towards the canyon. The canyon didn't seem any different than usual. Of course, it was also possible that they weren't familiar with this canyon. The leader dismounted his horse and whipped the horses, but causing the horse to painfully rush over. Nothing happened. Thus, he carefully followed. The other 9 people also planned to follow. At this time, he had already left the canyon. He saw something and raised his hand to signal for them to stop. Then he took out a thin rope and tied it to a protruding rock. He passed through the canyon and returned to his companion's side. He pulled on the thin rope with his bare hands and the rock fell. Then there were several loud rumbling sounds as giant rocks fell from the canyon. Arrows and spears flew out, and hidden weapons and silver needles covered the sky. It was as if tigers and dragons were roaring. Lightning flashed and thunder rolled. After a terrifying commotion, the path to the canyon was completely blocked by giant rocks. Just now, if they hadn't stopped Xiao Heng in time and allowed Xiao Heng to pass through the canyon and trigger the mechanism, even if they weren't completely wiped out, at least half of them would have died. General Nangong shuddered. Grand Tutor Zhuang sneered. It's a good plan, but this old man still has the same words. Xiao Heng, you're not this old man's match. General Nangong coldly said, don't waste words with him. Quickly capture him and get down to business. Grand Tutor Zhuang said, Xiao Heng, will you obediently allow yourself to be captured, or will this old man send someone to capture you? Xiao Heng lifted the curtain and got off the carriage. Grand Tutor Zhuang made a hand gesture. 2 guards of the Zhuang family and a dragon shadow guard of the Yen Kingdom walked towards Xiao Heng's carriage. The dragon shadow guard of the Yen Kingdom didn't say anything and knocked out the hidden guard of the princess's residence. The Zhuang family's guards captured Xiao Heng and brought him in front of Grand Tutor Zhuang. At this time, General Nangong of the Yen Kingdom also rode his horse from behind. He tightened the reins and looked down at Xiao Heng. His gaze gradually deepened. It was as if he was looking at Xiao Heng, but also as if he was looking at someone else through Xiao Heng. You are General Nangong? Xiao Heng fearlessly met his gaze. A general of a kingdom. His aura was enough to crush the backbone ministers of the Zhao kingdom. However, this 19-year-old youth dared to stare directly at him. General Nangong faintly curved his lips. You have some guts. Chop off one of his fingers. Even when he heard that his finger was going to be chopped off, Xiao Heng still looked at him, without any change in expression. A dragon shadow guard walked forward and casually grabbed Xiao Heng's left hand. Grand Tutor Zhuang calmly said, Wait. Chop off his right finger. Xiao Heng coldly looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang. The dragon shadow guard pulled out his dagger and was about to chop down when the sound of galloping horse hooves suddenly came from not far away. Have mercy. The dragon shadow guard's movements paused. Grand Tutor Zhuang and General Nangong both looked over and saw eunuch Qin, who served the Empress Dowager, quickly galloping over. He is. General Nangong frowned. Grand Tutor Zhuang smiled and said, the Empress Dowager's trusted aide, eunuch Qin. When eunuch Qin's horse galloped into the open space, it was blocked by the Zhao Kingdom's dragon shadow guard and imperial bodyguards. General Nangong made a hand gesture, and everyone moved aside to make a path. Eunuch Qin dismounted and panted as he looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang. The Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager has ordered to have mercy as long as you let Xiao Heng go. The Empress Dowager. Whatever conditions the Empress Dowager has, she will agree to them. Grand Tutor Zhuang slightly narrowed his eyes. Is this the Empress Dowager's intention? Or are you faking her decree? Naturally, it is Aijia's intention. Accompanied by a majestic and domineering voice, a spacious carriage slowly came from behind. It didn't seem to be fast, but it actually moved 100 steps in an instant. Grand Tutor Zhuang's eyes moved. In the end, he had been suppressed by the Empress Dowager's aura for many years. There was an instinctive fear in his bones. However, when he thought of the current situation, he quickly felt relieved. He and Empress Dowager Zhuang had already broken up. He was no longer her subject. General Nangong made a hand gesture, and Empress Dowager Zhuang's carriage drove straight in and stopped not far in front of Grand Tutor Zhuang and General Nangong. She came almost alone. Now, other than eunuch Qin, there was only one eunuch driving the carriage, and this eunuch didn't know martial arts. General Nangong looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang's carriage with a faint smile. The Zhao Kingdom's Empress Dowager really makes me have a whole new level of respect for you. Eunuch Qin. Empress Dowager Zhuang lightly ordered. Eunuch Qin understood and walked forward to open the curtain for Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang sat in the low-key and luxurious carriage. She was not afraid in the face of danger. General Nangong of the Yan Kingdom, why don't we make a deal? You can pretend that Xiao Heng has died here today. Aijia promises that he will never appear in front of the world in the future. In exchange, Aijia can agree to 3 conditions, any conditions. General Nangong smiled. Empress Dowager Zhuang is really generous. I heard that this boy and Empress Dowager Zhuang are not related by blood. Empress Dowager Zhuang can even ignore her own grandnephew, Prince Ning. Why are you so stubbornly protecting an outsider? Empress Dowager Zhuang was not angry. She said with dignity, "This is Aijia's business. You don't have to worry about it. Aijia only wants to ask General Nangong if you are willing to make this deal." Grand Tutor Zhuang turned his head and said, "General Nangong, don't believe her. She is cunning. If you let Xiao Heng go, she will no longer be afraid of shooting the rat for fear of breaking the vases. She can turn around and lead the army to destroy you. I know that generals' men of sacrifice are very powerful, but I don't think generals' men of sacrifice can walk out of an army of 100,000. Empress Dowager Zhuang said coldly, "Does General think that if you kill Xiao Heng here, Aijia will let you leave the Zhao Kingdom alive? If General Nangong doesn't believe me, you can try. If you dare to touch a hair on Xiao Heng's head today, Aijia will bury all of you with him." General Nangong narrowed his eyes slightly, as if he was thinking about the possibility of this result. Empress Dowager Zhuang understood the principle of giving a sweet date after a slap. She continued to guide him patiently. "This is a good deal. No matter who Xiao Heng is, he will no longer appear in the world with his current identity. He will also not go to the Yan Kingdom to interfere with any of your affairs. Aijia believes that General is only following orders. General's loyalty is valuable, but are the lives of General and so many of his men not valuable? This is a win-win situation for you and me. Why would General not consider it? If General is worried that Aijia will break her promise in the future, there is no need. Didn't Aijia agree to General's 3 conditions? I believe that General will always have a way to get hold of Aijia's weakness. General Nangong, don't believe her. She's my younger sister, and I know her character better than anyone else. She's never had any credibility." Grand Tutor Zhuang could not watch Empress Dowager Zhuang and General Nangong reach a deal. If that happened, he would lose his value. Empress Dowager Zhuang continued to poke at General Nangong's weak spot. General Nangong is still hesitating. Could it be that you are doubting Aijia's sincerity? Is Aijia going alone not enough to show Aijia's determination to negotiate with General Nangong? The Nangong family is ranked 11th in the Yan Kingdom. Although our Zhao country is a lower country, we still have the ability to help the Nangong family. General Nangong's gaze fell on Xiao Heng's face. Xiao Heng's hands had been tied up by Grand Tutor Zhuang's guards. He stood proudly under the blue dome of heaven, without the slightest trace of embarrassment or fear. His eyebrows were very similar to a person's. A pair of almost identical eyes flashed in General Nangong's mind. A bit of hesitation appeared on his face. Grand Tutor Zhuang saw that the situation was not good. He suddenly pulled out his horsewhip and whipped Xiao Hong. He was a civil official and did not have much strength. However, he could not withstand the force of the whip. It swept across Xiao Hong's delicate skin. An eye-catching whip mark instantly appeared on one side of his face. Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes darkened. "Zhuang Changde, you're crazy." Changde was Grand Tutor Zhuang's courtesy name. Empress Dowager Zhuang had never called Grand Tutor Zhuang that in her life. General Nangong was also somewhat displeased. However, it did not seem to be because Xiao Hong had been whipped. Instead, it seemed that this whip had caused his eyebrows to swell. It no longer reminded people of the proud and unruly eyes in their memories. General Nangong slowly said, "Empress Dowager Zhuang, your conditions are very tempting. However, I am afraid that I cannot reach an agreement with you. Moreover, because you recognize me today, I cannot let you live in this world." General Nangong. Xiao Hong suddenly spoke. "Do you really want to go against me?" General Nangong arrogantly said, "I am not going against you. I am going to kill you. You are not qualified to be this general's opponent." Xiao Hong's hand were tied. He looked at him seriously. "General Nangong, don't bully a young man because he is poor." General Nangong was slightly startled. He raised his hand and gave the order. "Do it. Leave no one alive." Grand Tutor Zhuang opened his mouth. General Nangong, a dragon shadow guard, brandished his sword and ruthlessly chopped toward Xiao Hong's head. At this critical moment, there was a whoosh in the night sky. An arrow fiercely and domineeringly shot over, and fiercely pierced through the dragon shadow guard's heart. After the arrow pierced through his body, it was nailed to the ground in front of General Nangong's horse. The tail of the arrow swayed, showing how fast and fierce it was. However, this was not an ordinary arrow. Its body was longer and the arrowhead was larger. It had terrifying barbs and looked like a ferocious beast. General Nangong's heart sank. He had never seen an arrow like this before. An ominous premonition surged in his heart. In the next second, the ground under his feet began to tremble. The dust and sand began to rustle. The horse was frightened and began to circle in place uneasily. Thump, thump, thump. The sound of horse hooves coming from afar was like heavy black iron smashing into the cold stone floor. It also smashed into everyone's suddenly tightened heart. The sound was clearly still some distance away, but the powerful killing intent had already covered the sky like sand and stones. The entire world was covered in a terrifying killing intent. Thump, thump, thump. It was not the sound of the war drums. It was even more striking than the war drums. The sound of the armor horses became faster and faster. It was like a flood rushing over. It was a group of black armored cavalry wearing ghost masks. They held a spear in one hand and a shield in the other. Even the horses wore ghost masks on their heads. They were like Azura-in spirits from purgatory. They brought with them the aura of death, causing everyone to hold their breaths in shock. General Nangong's expression changed. Wasn't this the rumored Ghost Mask Army? The Ghost Mask Army was not truly dead people. It was said that they were as terrifying as the undead. Everywhere they went, no one was left alive. It was like they were pulling their opponents into the purgatory of the underworld. The Ghost Mask General, holding a giant long blade, flew over the heads of the 50 dragon shadow guards. He rode a ghost horse and brought with him an unstoppable killing intent as he charged at General Nangong and Grand Tutor Zhuang. He domineeringly blocked in front of Xiao Hong. Grand Tutor Zhuang looked and took in a cold breath. Marquis Xianping? He looked at Xiao Hong again and saw that Xiao Hong's eyes were calm. He was not surprised at Marquis Xianping's arrival. This is bad. They had fallen into a trap. After all this time, they had escaped and found a flaw in the mechanism. It had all been a smokescreen. The true trump card was Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping was not wearing a mask. At this moment, this beautiful face that was known as the #1 face of the Zhao country was releasing endless killing intent. "You want to kill my son?" Marquis Xianping pointed with his long blade and smiled evilly. He said arrogantly, "Is it you who has become arrogant, or is it that I, Xiao Ji, can't lift my blade?" The newest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964/2_89642826/108359330. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbq.com. Chapter 595. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. If Grand Tutor Zhuang had thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him for a moment, then when he heard the words, "Are you too arrogant, or is Xiao Ji too weak to lift a knife?" Grand Tutor Zhuang instantly confirmed that the person was indeed Marquis Xianping. So his guess was right. Whether it was Xiao Heng's plan to lure the snake out of its hole or Empress Dowager Zhuang's sudden appearance, their basic purpose was to delay time and wait for Marquis Xianping to appear. But this was very strange, wasn't it? A few days ago he had received a memorial from the South Island, saying that a group of pirates had escaped on a ship, and Marquis Xianping had gone to pursue them. Could it be that those so-called memorials were all fake? Marquis Xianping was just trying to cover it up. In fact, he was already on his way back to the capital. Grand Tutor Zhuang gritted his teeth and looked at Marquis Xianping, then looked at Xiao Heng. His stomach was filled with anger. The father and son were the same. They were even more scheming than the old foxes in the court. Marquis Xianping glanced at the whip wound on Xiao Heng's face, and his dangerous eyes fell on Grand Tutor Zhuang's hand that was holding the reins. "Which hand hurt my son?" This was the second time that Marquis Xianping had admitted that Xiao Heng was his son. He didn't pretend in front of Grand Tutor Zhuang at all. This was not a good sign. Xiao Heng's identity was still a secret, but there was a kind of person in the world who could keep a secret forever. Grand Tutor Zhuang's eyelids suddenly twitched. He had never been so afraid of Marquis Xianping. After all, in terms of official status, he was no worse than Marquis Xianping. He even had a lot of experience. But now he was terrified. He subconsciously looked at General Nangong. No need to look. He can't escape. After Marquis Xianping said this, General Nangong frowned. Before he could react, Marquis Xianping had already stabbed the handle of his broadsword into the ground. Immediately after, his horse leaped forward. Grand Tutor Zhuang's horse was startled and jumped around in disarray, letting out a series of neigh. Grand Tutor Zhuang did his best to stabilize himself, but Marquis Xianping's hand had already reached towards him without any explanation. Marquis Xianping grabbed his collar and mercilessly pulled him down from the horse. Marquis Xianping. Grand Tutor Zhuang cried out in alarm. "Oh, your ass." Marquis Xianping roughly threw him to the ground. He was a military general. His usual noble and elegant demeanor in front of others was only a facade. Deep down, he was barbaric and wild. Most people wouldn't use violence against an old and weak civil official like Grand Tutor Zhuang. No matter what, they would still enforce the law in a civilized manner. But was Marquis Xianping a normal person? He wasn't even a human being. Marquis Xianping had no qualms about bullying this thin and weak old man. Not only did he throw him to the ground, he also tightened the reins in his hands. He raised the horse's hooves and stepped on Grand Tutor Zhuang's right hand and left hand. There were two crisp cracking sounds in the air, followed by Grand Tutor Zhuang's unbearable howls of pain. After Marquis Xianping finished stepping, he turned the horse around and looked at him innocently. "I asked you which hand it was. You didn't answer, so I had no choice but to cripple it." Grand Tutor Zhuang was stunned. There was actually such a shameless and arrogant person in the world, taking advantage of others and still pretending to be innocent. This was probably referring to him. Grand Tutor Zhuang had spent most of his life in the bureaucracy. Thanks to selling a good younger sister to the palace, his life had been smooth sailing these past few years. Even if someone wanted to trip him up, they mostly used a roundabout and subtle method. Who would believe that his hand would be crippled in front of everyone? Grand Tutor Zhuang had never suffered physical pain before. He was in so much pain that he almost fainted. He looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang, who was sitting in a carriage not far away and quietly watching the scene. Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes were very calm. She had let go of this older brother, who had eaten her flesh and blood for her entire life. "Zhuang Jins, you're so ruthless." Grand Tutor Zhuang spat out blood and fiercely gasped for breath. Was she the ruthless one? There was a type of person in the world that had become accustomed to eating other people's flesh and blood. Once they were no longer allowed to eat, they would become unforgivable, heartless people. But when they ate other people's flesh and blood, they never thought that perhaps they should not have eaten them in the first place. Forget it. What was the point of talking about righteousness and morality with this sort of person? What was the point of talking about fairness and grace? Deep down, they were selfish. It was impossible for them to think for others. Otherwise, they would not have done so many outrageous things. Empress Dowager Zhuang did not plead for leniency on his behalf. In fact, she did not even look at Grand Tutor Zhuang. "Ahung, come over to Grandaunt." She was talking about Grandaunt, not my wife. Only at this moment did Grand Tutor Zhuang truly realize that Empress Dowager Zhuang was not acting in a fit of pique. She had truly given up on the Awang family. She had a new family. They were not related by blood, but they could rely on each other. In the past, Empress Dowager Zhuang had also treated the Zhuang family right. It was just a pity that aside from Zhuang Yuhang, nobody else could see her efforts. They just felt that she was a daughter that had walked out of the Zhuang family, so she deserved to work hard for the Zhuang family. Xiao Hung turned around and walked towards Empress Dowager Zhuang's carriage. General Nangong's gaze sank. Marquis Xianping pulled out his long sword and urged his horse to stand in front of him. "I will slowly take care of that old thing later. Right now, we should settle the debt between you and me." 5 years ago, he had not been able to protect his son. This time, he would not allow this group of bastards to succeed. General Nangong looked at Marquis Xianping with a serious expression. He had heard of Marquis Xianping's reputation. First, this person was extremely shameless. Second, this person was actually ranked among the beauties of the 6 countries. Who knew how a grown man managed to squeeze in? His elder sister, imperial daughter Nangong, was ranked behind him. He originally thought that he was a weak and sickly beauty. Who knew that he was an unyielding martial arts expert? Before coming to Zhao country, General Nangong had already gathered enough information. He squinted his eyes and looked at Marquis Xianping's waist. "Zhao country's first-rank marquis, Xiao Ji, I heard that you have an injury to your waist. You are not my opponent. Are you certain that you want to fight me alone? That's fine, I will allow you 3 moves. Marquis Xianping snorted. "Who the fuck wants to fight you alone? Isn't it better to gang up on him?" Changjing. Marquis Xianping lazily lifted his eyelids. General Nangong saw a black-clothed youth leading 3 ghost-masked generals, flying out from the ranks of the ghost-masked army. Using his Qinggong, he swept past the dragon shadow guards on the empty ground and aggressively landed beside Marquis Xianping. "Beat him up," Marquis Xianping said. General Nangong's eyes glared. Did he not care about martial arts? General against general. Shouldn't it be a one-on-one duel? Wait, wrong. Marquis Xianping called out to Chang Jing, "Chop him up. Chop off his son's finger. He. General Nangong." Chang Jing pulled out his long sword. It was a black iron treasure sword. There was a bamboo leaf carved on the blade. General Nangong's expression changed. Dark Knight Sect. Dark Knight Sect, the #1 assassin sect in the 6 countries. But wasn't the Dark Knight Sect in Zhao country? How could an expert appear here? And by Marquis Xianping's side? Chang Jing followed him onto the battlefield. His martial arts had improved a lot, and his moves were filled with killing intent. He slashed his long sword at General Nangong. General Nangong quickly pulled out his sword to block. He managed to block it, but he was also forced off the horse. General Nangong was very surprised. Were all the experts of the Dark Knight sect so powerful? He was a member of the Nangong family. His martial arts were ranked among the top in the 6 countries. Soon, he understood why this black-clothed youth's martial arts were stronger than ordinary experts of the Dark Knight sect. He had seen that long sword before. The tassel on the hilt was bestowed by the king of Zhao country. He was there at the time. The owner of the long sword was the current leader of the Dark Knight sect, Chang Kuan. Chang Jing. When he looked at Chang Jing again, he was in a bad mood. This was the young leader of the Dark Knight sect. Marquis Xianping, how much did you pay to hire the young leader of the Dark Knight sect? The Nangong family will pay double. General Nangong didn't know whether to be ruthless or not. If he didn't kill the young leader of the Dark Knight sect, he would die. But if he killed the young leader of the Dark Knight sect, he would still die when the Dark Knight sect came to the Nangong family for revenge. General Nangong wasn't a pervert like Marquis Xianping. He was a cultured soldier. But tonight, he cursed in his heart. Marquis Xianping didn't care about General Nangong's complicated feelings. He rode his horse, held his long sword, and leisurely attacked the shadowed dragon guards and guards of Zhao country. His ghost-faced army had 3,000 people. They might not be a match for the shadowed dragon guards of Zhao country, but no one was stronger than them when it came to fighting together. General Nangong's men were divided into 2 groups. One group was on the open ground, and the other group was in front of the valley. Empress Dowager Zhuang's carriage and them were in the middle of the 2 groups. After Marquis Xianping entered the battle state, he seemed to have changed into a different person. He rode on a tall horse and waved the flag in his hand with a dignified expression. The 3,000 troops dismounted and divided into 3 groups. They held shields and spears and surrounded the 2 groups of Zhao country's forces. The last group of troops protected Empress Dowager Zhuang's carriage like an iron wall. When the flag was moved, the coiling dragon array rose, and the flying dragon array moved. They could retreat and attack. Every change of the array was invulnerable. On the other hand, Zhao country's side wasn't so optimistic. Waves of shadow dragon guards fell down, and screams sounded everywhere. General Nangong could only watch as the formations he had never seen before mercilessly devoured his army like the jaws of a giant beast. He was held back by the young master of the Dark Knight Gate and the 3 ghost-faced generals, and couldn't even give out orders. While he was in a daze, Chang Jing's sword came over and pierced his waist. She then waved her hand and chopped off one of his arms. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/8964_89642826/108340-358. HTML Genius. Remember the website address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 596. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all here. Empress Dowager Zhuang sat in the carriage and personally witnessed this hunt. That's right, it was a hunt. She knew how strong the Dragon Shadow Guards were. Strictly speaking, the Dragon Shadow Guards that Nangong Jiang brought were a bit stronger than the Dragon Shadow Guards of Zhao Country. However, in front of Marquis Xianping's Ghostface army, this group of Dragon Shadow Guards had no place to use their martial arts. They became prey in the forest, allowing the Ghostface army to hunt them down. This was a tactical advantage and also an overwhelming aura. Marquis Xianping seemed to have a natural aura. He just stood there and didn't do anything. His aura of being number one in the world was very well grasped. Of course, bluffing wasn't enough. He had to have a strong military force and strength. Reality proved that Marquis Xianping did all of this. Not long ago, Empress Dowager Zhuang thought that the most proficient military officer in Zhao Country was the old Marquis of Ding and Guchao. Now that she saw how Marquis Xianping dealt with the Dragon Shadow Guards of Yan Country, she knew that Marquis Xianping's understanding of the battlefield and tactics had reached a level that no one could match. If this kind of person was born in a large family like the Nangong family, who knows what kind of achievements he would have. It didn't take long for the hunt to end, leaving only a few survivors. Take the captives back for interrogation. As for the rest, clean up what should be cleaned up and bury what should be buried. Clean up meant taking the other side's weapons and belongings. On this point, Marquis Xianping and Gu Jiao's methods were the same. They couldn't waste any war resources. As for properly disposing of the corpses, it was mainly to prevent a plague. General Nangong saw that the situation was hopeless, and he had lost an arm. He didn't have time to fight with the young master of the Anya sect. He threw a black gunpowder and turned to run. Chang Jing held a long sword and chased after him with a cold expression. Marquis Xianping wasn't worried about Chang Jing's safety. In the capital, other than those old things and Long Yi, no one could touch Chang Jing. Moreover, Nangong Li had lost an arm. Marquis Xianping came to the front of Empress Dowager Zhuang's carriage and dismounted. He bowed to the closed curtain of the carriage and said, "I came late to save you and frightened you." Marquis Xianping did not really come to greet her. Empress Dowager Zhuang glanced at Xiao Heng beside her and said, "Go. Let your father send you back. I will return to the palace tonight." "Xiao Heng, you made an appointment with Auntie Lu to play Yezi cards. Let's go." Empress Dowager Zhuang said. Xiao Heng reluctantly got off the carriage. Marquis Xianping picked a docile horse for him. "I left in a hurry and didn't prepare a carriage. Come, ride this." Xiao Heng expressionlessly walked up to the horse, grabbed the saddle, and was just about to step on the stirrups to get on. Marquis Xianping suddenly reached out and grabbed his waist, intending to lift him up like when he was a child. However, Xiao Heng indifferently turned his face. "I'm not a child anymore. I can ride a horse." Marquis Xianping angrily withdrew his hand. Xiao Heng really stepped on the stirrups and nimbly flipped over to sit on it. Marquis Xianping was shocked. He really grew up. Marquis Xianping also mounted his horse. His horse was much wilder than Xiao Heng's horse. As soon as it got close to Xiao Heng's horse, it began to be fierce and bully it. Xiao Heng's horse was scared out of its wits. Marquis Xianping impatiently pulled the reins and threatened, "If you show off again, I'll stew you when we get back." Then his horse became obedient. Perhaps it was to curry favor with its smelly master who had no conscience, no morals, and did not cherish his mount. It even used its head to rub Xiao Heng's horse's head in a very flattering manner. Xiao Heng's horse was even more frightened. Marquis Xianping's horse, at this time on the other side. Grand Tutor Zhuang was captured by Marquis Xianping's men. This old fellow had caused a lot of trouble. According to Marquis Xianping's personality, he would not use the Yaman's methods. He had to be killed now. Xiao Heng opened his mouth. "I promised Royal Prince and to spare his grandfather's life." Although Marquis Xianping really wanted to crush that old fellow to death, since his son had said so, it was not impossible to spare his dog life. After all, living was suffering. He would just let him live a life worse than death. Xiao Hong opened his mouth first. Although there was something, Marquis Xianping was still quite happy. He smiled. Son, why did you think of writing me a letter? Do you think that your father is still the most reliable? Xiao Hong glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. I just don't want Jiao Jiao to go to war again. If the Gu army was mobilized, Gu Jiao would definitely follow. Marquis Xianping sat on the horse and leaned to the side. He leaned closer to his son and said, The Gu army is not as strong as my Ghost Face army. They will have a lot of casualties when dealing with the Dragon Shadow Guards, but my Ghost Face army will not. The Ghost Face army was originally a high-end fighting force. They were few in number, but their fighting strength was very strong. They were very suitable to deal with the Yen country's death soldiers. Xiao Hong said seriously, The Gu army is large and their fighting strength is not bad. Marquis Xianping's face showed that he did not want to listen. Anyway, you came to me. In your heart, I am the strongest. He was already an adult and he was still talking about this. Xiao Hong did not want to talk to him anymore. Xiao Hong wanted the horse to go faster, but he did not have a whip. He hesitated and said lightly, Can you make it go faster? Marquis Xianping shamelessly said, No. He just wanted to spend more time with his son. Xiao Hong took a deep breath and held the reins tightly. There is a shortcut nearby. Go there. Marquis Xianping's mouth twitched. Damn. I forgot about this. Xiao Hong led the way and got off the official road at a fork in the road. There was a village here. After walking over, they could cross a small stream and save half the distance. However, when Xiao Hong reached the stream, he discovered the stream had risen. Xiao Hong's face instantly darkened. Was he so unlucky? This was because the snow on the mountaintop had melted and the snow water had gathered into a stream. The originally shallow stream was now up to his thighs. The deepest part might be even deeper. The most important thing was that the stream was a little turbulent. Xiao Hong's horse did not want to move. Marquis Xianping's mount was eager to try. However, the water was deep and it was not safe to ride on a horse. It was not easy to lead the way, but it ended up like this. It would be a lie to say that he was not embarrassed. Xiao Hong gritted his teeth and decided to turn back. If he lost face, then so be it. Unexpectedly, before he could speak, Marquis Xianping spoke first. He dismounted and said to Xiao Hong, Come down. Walk over. Xiao Hong was a man. His bottom line was to turn back, but if he said that he could not swim over in front of his father, he would find it hard to say. He took a deep breath and dismounted. Steeling his heart, he strode toward the fast stream. Unexpectedly, just as his feet stepped on the water, he was grabbed by a pair of strong hands and thrown onto his back. Xiao Hong felt the world spin. By the time he reacted, Marquis Xianping had already carried him on his back and used 2 hands to support his legs. Without any hesitation, he swam into the cold stream. On the battlefield, he had encountered all kinds of terrible and dangerous terrains. For Marquis Xianping, this kind of stream could be crossed with his eyes closed. However, that was when he was alone. It did not matter if he fell or bumped into something. Now that he had his son on his back, he became especially careful. He did not dare to take a single step. He had to step in every circle and choose the most suitable place to step. When a person's heart had someone else's weight, their life would also have that person's weight. Marquis Xianping walked for a long time in a stream less than 2 zhang wide. He did not let Xiao Hong feel the slightest bit of stagger. After walking to the other side, Marquis Xianping's waist and abdomen were completely soaked. Xiao Hong's shoes were only slightly wet. Marquis Xianping had no intention of putting him down. He continued to carry him forward. Xiao Hong lay on his back and said with a serious expression, Put me down. I'll walk by myself. Marquis Xianping walked steadily, as if he was flying. His wet military boots creaked on the ground. This is a mountain path. It's not easy to walk. Behind the two, in a place Xiao Hung could not see, the blood in the stream was washed away by the waves. Marquis Xianping carried Xiao Hung up the mountain and down the mountain. The water droplets on his body dripped all the way. At first, Xiao Hung really thought that they were all water droplets. But gradually, as the water droplets decreased, an increasingly strong smell of blood gradually spread from Marquis Xianping's body. Xiao Hung frowned and looked back at the ground. Under the thin moonlight, there were bloody footprints on the ground. "You're injured?" Xiao Hung asked in surprise. When fighting against the people of Yan, Marquis Xianping did not personally use force, so it should not be a new injury. Marquis Xianping carelessly grunted. "Minor injury." There was no one who did not get injured on the battlefield. Over the years, there were countless large and small injuries on his body. The most serious one was a waist injury many years ago. He had been injured in the same place 3 times, leaving behind a permanent illness. This time, it was also because of the recurrence of the waist injury in the last battle. He was accidentally stabbed twice, once on the back and once on the thigh. When he received Xiao Hang's letter, he was getting stitches in the military camp. Xiao Hang suddenly became very angry. "Why didn't you say you were injured? You even rode a horse, dripping water, walking, carrying people on your back." Marquis Xianping suddenly stopped and slightly turned his head. Hung, are you worried about me?" Xiao Hung choked and turned his face away. "I'm not." The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/108339503. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 597. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. Marquis Xianping didn't put Xiao Hung down. It wasn't until Marquis Xianping's horse took Xiao Hang's horse back to the official road that the two of them rode back to the inner city of the capital. Not going back to Chishui Alley? Marquis Xianping saw that Xiao Hung was not leading the way. Xiao Hung said in a low voice, "Yes, I'll stay with my mother for the next few days." Marquis Xianping didn't ask any more questions. Although he and Princess Xinyang have been husband and wife for many years, they didn't interfere with each other and didn't disturb each other. Therefore, this was the first time he came to the house in Juke Street. He watched Xiao Hung go in and planned to leave. However, Xiao Hung opened his mouth and stopped him. "You deal with your injuries first." In order not to sound like he was concerned about him, he added, "There's a doctor here." "Your mother, she's not here." Marquis Xianping raised an eyebrow. "I was wondering how you became so bold and dared to take your father back." He had been looking forward to it for so long. It was not easy for him to get a little bit of concern from his son. It was impossible for Marquis Xianping to miss the opportunity to get along with his son. No matter what, he had to wait until his son called him father again. Marquis Xianping dismounted from his horse. When he carried Xiao Hung over the mountains, he didn't even frown. Now that he was home, he acted. In order to show the seriousness of his injury, he limped into the house in an exaggerated manner. Xiao Hung looked at his left leg, and his face instantly darkened. "You hurt your right leg." Marquis Xianping. At this time, it was already the second half of the night. Gu Jiao was also injured and needed to rest. Xiao Hung didn't wake her up, but Dr. Song was here and had just finished taking Gu Jiao's temperature. Xiao Hung placed Marquis Xian Ping in his room and invited Dr. Song over. Dr. Song was a sensible person. After he came to Zhuke Avenue, he had already vaguely guessed Xiao Liulang's identity, but he didn't ask much. Seeing Xiao Liulang bring Marquis Xian Ping back, he still didn't ask anything. Xiao Hung took out a set of his own clothes for Marquis Xian Ping to change into. To be honest, there was still a difference in the stature of the father and son. Marquis Xian Ping practiced martial arts all year round, so he was naturally more burly than Xiao Hung. However, the two of them were actually about the same height. Marquis Xian Ping looked at the clothes that weren't too short and couldn't help but sigh once again. His son had really grown up. Dr. Song began to deal with Marquis Xuanping's injuries. Xiao Hung thought that there were only 2 knife wounds on his body. But who would have thought that when Dr. Song opened his coat, the old and new scars on his back almost made Xiao Hung stunned. Marquis Xian Ping had a handsome jade-like face, which made people subconsciously think that his body was the same as his face. Who would have thought that he was already covered with cuts and bruises? In Marquis Xian Ping's eyes, these small injuries were not injuries. What he remembered was the knife on his back and the knife on his right leg. Marquis Xian Ping looked up and saw his son looking at him in a daze. He forgot that his son hated these fighting and killing things the most. The toys he made for his son when he was a child. His son didn't like any of them. These scars must be very ugly. Marquis Xian Ping hurriedly pulled up his clothes and said to Xiao Hung, "You go out first." Xiao Hung's eyelashes trembled. He turned around and walked out with a complicated expression. "Howie, your wounds have been stitched more than once, right?" Dr. Song looked at Marquis Xian Ping's 2 important injuries and said, "MMM." Marquis Xian Ping vaguely replied, "I've stitched them once or twice." Marquis Xian Ping's wound was stitched once when he came back from the battlefield. After that, he tore the wound when he was traveling nonstop. He stitched them once or twice when he changed horses at the station. Dr. Song earnestly said, "Howard, it's very dangerous for you to be like this. If you are injured, you should take a good rest. The most taboo is to tear the wound repeatedly. This is more serious than a direct stab." "Then, will I be crippled?" Marquis Xian Ping asked. Dr. Song sighed and said, "You are lucky. My family has special medicine. Otherwise, your legs will really be crippled." Marquis Xian Ping's wound was already red and inflamed. He soaked it with water just now. Dr. Song has never seen such a disobedient patient. If it weren't for the family's anti-inflammatory medicine, even the gods can't save him. Dr. Song cleaned Marquis Xian Ping's wound. He couldn't help but sigh at Marquis Xian Ping's special physique. In the case of repeated tearing, it can still grow. It's just a local infection. It will be a bit troublesome to treat and nurse it. I'll remove the thread first." Dr. Song said. "Remove it." Marquis Xian Ping didn't care. "It may hurt a little," Dr. Song said while removing the thread. When he turned his head, Marquis Xian Ping had already fallen asleep. Marquis Xian Ping seemed to have sensed something. He tried to open his eyes and said in a daze, "What did you say?" Dr. Song said, "Nothing, I'm done. I'm going to give you an injection." Marquis Xian Ping looked at the infusion bottle and infusion needle that Dr. Song brought over. He tilted his head and continued to sleep. Dr. Song connected the pulse tube for him and muttered, "This is the first time you're doing this, but you're not afraid. There were too many injuries on Marquis Xian Ping's body that needed to be dealt with." It was already half an hour later when Dr. Song came out of the house. Xiao Hung was waiting for him in the corridor. Dr. Song walked forward with his medicine box and said, "Xiao Darren." Xiao Hung turned around and asked, "How is he?" Dr. Song said, "He fell asleep. The injuries on his body have been dealt with. To be honest, his injuries are a bit serious. The wound on his back is so long, and the wound on his leg is so deep." Xiao Hung looked at the length and depth of Dr. Song's hand. His handsome eyebrows suddenly wrinkled. Dr. Song sighed and said, "Does he not want to live anymore? If he was injured, he should recuperate in the barracks. Why did he rush back?" Dr. Song didn't know anything about the Yen country. Xiao Heng's throat moved a bit, and his heart was filled with mixed feelings. Then, can it be cured? Dr. Song said truthfully, "It can be cured, but it's hard to say whether there will be any sequelae. It seems that he still has to wait for Jiao Jiao to wake up and ask her if she has a cure." This was Princess Xinyang's house. Xiao Heng didn't intend to let Marquis Xianping stay overnight. However, Marquis Xianping was injured like this. He can't really wake him up and send him back. Xiao Heng entered the house. There was a dim oil lamp on the table. Marquis Xianping was sleeping soundly with an infusion bottle. Perhaps only at this time did he lose his arrogant and domineering posture in front of others. His eyebrows were haggard and tired. In fact, his injury was there from beginning to end. It's just that when he was awake, his aura was too strong, so people couldn't feel his weakness. Xiao Heng knew that he had never grown up to be what he had hoped for. He wanted a son that could inherit his legacy, a son that could follow him onto the battlefield, a son that he could be proud of. But regardless of whether it was him who had been gifted at a young age, or him who had become the chancellor of the Imperial College at a young age, or him who had climbed up step by step from a quagmire to gradually display his abilities in court, none of them could make him proud or satisfied. When the sky began to brighten, Princess Xinyang rushed back from outside the city. She could have arrived much earlier, but there was a heavy rain outside the city's western gate. Along the way, there was a small landslide, and they were blocked for most of the night. The first thing Princess Xinyang did after returning to the city was quickly go home to see her son. Just as she entered the yard, she saw a maidservant come out of Xiao Heng's room with a basin of blood. Her eyebrows jumped. The thing she was most worried about had happened. Aheng had been schemed against by the people of Yen country. Aheng. No matter how calm a mother was, she could not remain calm when faced with her son's predicament. Princess Xinyang practically staggered as she rushed in. The maidservant at the door did not even have time to pay respects to her before she arrived at the bed. The room was filled with the smell of medicine for wounds. It was clear that the other party's injuries were not light. The tip of her nose became stuffy, and she threw herself onto the body of the person on the bed. Her two hands tightly held onto his shoulders. Before she could finish her sentence, she felt a large palm slowly land on the top of her head. This action caused her to be surprised for a moment. There were two main reasons. First, Xiao Heng could still move. This meant that he had not died and could still be saved. Second, why did Xiao Heng touch her head? Princess Xinyang raised her head with tears in her eyes and stared blankly at Xiao Heng on the bed. With just one glance, she stood up. Xiao, why is it you?" It was as if she had been struck by lightning, and her entire body stuttered. Marquis Xianping slightly furrowed his brow. He was a bit annoyed from being woken up. He slowly withdrew the hand that had just touched Princess Xinyang's head and pinched his forehead. Following this, he frowned and looked at Princess Xinyang. Qin Feng Wan. The newest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online will be available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642826/1083206441. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com, BQG's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 598. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. This was very awkward. The awkward one was Princess Xianyang. Someone as thick-skinned as Marquis Xianping would not feel awkward. He was just very confused. Princess Xianyang's face still had 2 lines of undried tears. Marquis Xianping was even more confused. I haven't died yet. Is there a need for this? Crying like this. Is the important point that you haven't died yet? I, Princess Xianyang, Qin Fengwan, will not shed a single tear for you, Marquis Xianping. Also, what's with your tone of confusion when you said Qin Fengwan? You don't even know who I am, yet you dare to treat me so familiarly. Princess Xianyang could not continue her silent criticism. Why are you here? When did you return to the capital? Princess Xianyang did not know about last night's plan. My son brought me back, Marquis Xianping confidently said. When he mentioned Xiao Hong, his tone was very relaxed. This meant that Xiao Hong was fine. The medicine in the room and the basin of bloody water that the maidservant had just brought out should be Marquis Xianping's. Princess Xianyang let out a sigh of relief. Her son being fine was fine. As for the man, it did not matter. Princess Xianyang wiped away the tears on her face and raised her chin like a proud peacock. Once you've recovered, return to your manner. Marquis Xianping looked at her with a baffled expression. Qin Fengwan, the person who threw herself at me seemed to be you. Can you not act like you dislike me every time you take advantage of me? Princess Xianyang glared at him. I, Marquis Xianping, earnestly said, if you were like this during the consummation, then forget it. You said you ate the wrong medicine, and I believed you for the time being. But you didn't eat the wrong medicine today, right? Princess Xianyang choked. Isn't that because you were lying in Ahang's bed? I thought you were him. Marquis Xianping put his arm behind his head and looked at her without blinking, as though he was considering the truth of her words. After a while he shook his head. Qin Fengwan, I don't believe you. Princess Xinyang. This person had been thick-skinned for a long time. Princess Xinyang felt that if she were to argue with him, the one who would be angered to death wouldn't be the thick-skinned one. Princess Xinyang ignored him and turned to leave the courtyard. Xiao Hong had just come out of Gu Jiao's room and was about to bring Gu Jiao to treat Marquis Xuanping's injury. Seeing that something was wrong, he hurriedly pulled his wife back into the room. Stop! Princess Xinyang shouted. Xiao Heng's body trembled. He pushed Gu Jiao into the room and closed the door with both hands. Gu Jiao poked her head out of the door. What's wrong? Xiao Hong hurriedly blocked her with his body and whispered, Go in quickly. Gu Jiao blinked strangely. Oh. Xiao Hong closed the door for Gu Jiao, then turned around and walked towards his mother with a smile. Mother, good morning. Princess Xinyang snapped. What do you mean by early? What's going on? Xiao Hong told her about what happened last night. My injury was too serious, so I brought him back to have Jiao Jiao take a look. Princess Xinyang coldly said, Why didn't you tell me about such an important plan earlier? You're still close to your father. Xiao Hong, why are you jealous? This was a trap. The fewer people who knew, the more realistic the situation would be, and the more likely it would be to lure Grand Tutor Zhuang and the people of Yan. Are you that angry with me? I'm not angry with you. Xiao Hong looked at her seriously, waiting for her to continue. But she didn't say anything. It was too hard to say. Thinking of how she had hugged Xiao Ji and cried her heart out, Princess Xinyang wished she could find a brick and knock herself out. Really, Princess Xinyang blushed in embarrassment and walked away angrily. Xiao Hong strangely rubbed his chin. My mother, what kind of reaction is this? Last night's event was very big. The news that Marquis Xianping returned to the capital with a ghost army gradually spread in the capital. This was Marquis Xianping's secret army, which had never been used in the Battle of the South Island. Now that it suddenly appeared in the capital, it naturally caused a big sensation. The emperor summoned Marquis Xianping into the palace. Because Princess Xinyang was acting as regent and was Marquis Xianping's wife, she was also summoned into Pure Flower's palace. Marquis Xianping entered the palace in a wheelchair. This was Dr. Gu's medical advice and couldn't be disobeyed. The other carriage had gone out to purchase, so there was only one carriage. Marquis Xianping couldn't ride a horse right now, so he could only ride with Princess Xinyang. Princess Xinyang also had Yujin sit inside, open the windows, and lift the curtains. Marquis Xianping glanced at her, but didn't say anything. After getting off the carriage, Marquis Xianping said to Princess Xinyang, "Chang Jing hasn't returned from capturing someone." Princess Xinyang didn't push him and found a eunuch to push him in. Marquis Xianping first reported the situation on the South Island. All of the pirates had been cleared out. Not only that, Marquis Xianping had also fought on the sea and expanded Zhao country's sea by hundreds of li. Now, Zhao country's banners were fluttering in the wind on Jadeite Island, the furthest South Island. This was a pleasant surprise. To be honest, the emperor had previously muttered to Eunuch Wei about why the South had started fighting first, but still hadn't ended it. Who would have thought that Marquis Xianping would act on his own initiative and turn all of the islands into Zhao countries? The emperor could imagine Marquis Xianping wielding a large saber with one foot on the mast and looking down arrogantly at the people on the islands. "Those who surrender will be spared. Are your injuries okay?" the emperor asked. "Minor injuries," Marquis Xianping said. The emperor's gaze swept over Marquis Xianping and Princess Xinyang. "Speaking of which, why did you two enter the palace together?" Marquis Xianping said lightly, "Oh, last night I rested with the princess." Everyone was shocked. "You rested with the princess, you too." Princess Xinyang quickly changed the topic. "Your Majesty, Imperial tutor Zhuang colluded with the people of Yan." There was such a thing? The emperor's attention was successfully diverted. Imperial tutor Zhuang's crimes were too numerous to list and could not be explained in a few words. Fortunately, Xiao Heng had already written his crimes into a memorial that night. Princess Xinyang directly presented the memorial to the emperor. The emperor had already learned from Empress Xiao that Xiao Lulang was Xiao Heng and that his birth mother was a female slave from Yan. But from the fact that the people of Yan had repeatedly chased after Xiao Heng, it was likely that the female slave from Yan had some other secrets. The emperor asked, "That General Nangong is called Nangongli? Where is he?" Marquis Xianping said, "Chang Jing went to give chase. His subordinates captured a few people alive. Will your Majesty personally interrogate them, or will this official interrogate them?" "You interrogate them," the emperor said. Marquis Xianping nodded, then thought of something and said, "Aheng said to leave Imperial tutor Zhuang with his lowly life. Everything else is up to you." Imperial tutor Zhuang had committed so many crimes that even dying 100 times would not be enough. But since Marquis Xianping had personally made this request, the emperor would not refuse to give him face. It was just that Imperial tutor Zhuang's position as an official would be completely lost. The glory of the Zhuang clan would also be destroyed. Then let's confiscate the property and send him into exile. The emperor looked at the contents of Xiao Heng's memorial and said, "The previous emperor's blank imperial edict was destroyed by Zhuang Yuhang. He can be considered to have performed a great service, so he will be exempt from punishment." Princess Xinyang said, "Ever since that child met Aheng, he has become different from before. It's mainly because our son taught him well. This is called one is marked by the company one keeps." Marquis Xianping spoke a rare literary phrase, and Princess Xinyang did not argue with the hour in a rare moment. The emperor was confused. "Did you two really spare no effort in praising your son? The empress misses you very much. Go to Kuaning Palace in a bit to visit her," the emperor said to Marquis Xianping. Yes. Leaving Pure Flowers Palace, Princess Xinyang planned to leave the palace. Marquis Xianping called her from his wheelchair. "Are you not going to visit little Qi? Qin Chu Yu had been poisoned. Although he had been cured, he was still in the process of recovering. Even if Empress Xiao did not like Princess Xinyang, she still doted on her son, Xiao Heng. Princess Xinyang also doted on Qin Chuyu." Princess Xinyang pondered a bit. Going with Marquis Xianping was better than going alone. At the very least, she would not have to stare at Empress Xiao. The two brought Eugene and a eunuch pushing the wheelchair to Kuaning Palace. Empress Xiao saw that her brother was sitting in a wheelchair and thought that he was disabled. Unable to hold back, she began to cry. Princess Xinyang thought of Empress Dowager Zhuang. They had both entered the palace as empresses, but Zhuang Jin's was no longer Zhuang Jin's. Xiao Shuyu, however, would always be the young girl that she was before she married. Was this what it was like to have someone supporting and protecting you? Empress Xiao cried until she was out of breath. Snot and tears flowed down her face. She was willful and straightforward. Marquis Xianping sat in his wheelchair and leaned back in disgust. Xiao Shuyu, you're so ugly. Marquis Xianping decided to ignore his sister. She had cried so much since she was young. He asked someone to push him to see Qin Shuyu. With her brother gone, Empress Xiao stopped crying. Why did you stop crying? Princess Xinyang asked. Empress Xiao said, Why should I cry? My brother is no longer here. Why should I cry for you to see? Princess Xinyang thought for a bit and said, You two were very close. Empress Xiao said without restraint, Of course. I only have one brother, and he only has one sister. If anyone dared to bully me when I was young, I would tell my brother, and he would beat him. Princess Xinyang asked, If the person who bullied you was very, very powerful, would your brother beat him? Empress Xiao said without hesitation, Of course. When I was young, he might not be able to win every time, but he would still stand up for me. This was her brother. He would rather be covered in blood than let his sister suffer the slightest bit of grievance. Even if he could not defeat the other party, he would still bite off a piece of flesh from the other party. He wanted to warn everyone that no one could bully the person that he, Xiao Ji, wanted to protect. They ate lunch in the palace. Marquis Xianping couldn't eat the exquisite but tasteless imperial food in the palace. Empress Xiao had the small kitchen make a table of delicious home-cooked dishes. Thanks to Marquis Xianping, Qin Shuyu didn't have to eat porridge today. He sat at the table and looked at the sumptuous dishes on the table, drooling. In front of Princess Xinyang was a bright plate of braised pork tendons with scallions. After Marquis Xianping sat down and talked to Empress Xiao, he inadvertently moved the plate of braised pork tendons with scallions and placed a plate of vegetarian three delicacies in front of her. Empress Xiao suddenly remembered that Princess Xinyang seemed to have started eating vegetables in recent years. Right. When they finished eating, Empress Xiao said to Marquis Xianping, Old Princess Consort Liang's family will be coming to the capital in a few days. Princess Xinyang's hand that was holding the bowl and chopsticks paused. Old Princess Consort Liang? Marquis Xianping said, The Emperor's 9th grand aunt. Empress Xiao smiled. Brother, you still remember her? Marquis Xianping said, I don't have a deep impression of her, but old Prince Liang does. Old Prince Liang was the previous emperor's 9th uncle. He was 8 years older than the previous emperor, and the two grew up like brothers. When the previous emperor fought for the throne, old Prince Liang put in a lot of effort. The previous emperor was very grateful and thought highly of him. He even went to the Yin Kingdom to buy the Shadow Dragon Guards. Is his body still healthy? Marquis Xianping asked. Empress Xiao shook her head with a grave expression. It's said that he's not very healthy. This time, he didn't come from his fief, and only had old Princess Consort Liang bring her own son. 9th granduncle is kind-hearted and loves the people like his own children. He did a lot of good things for the people in his fief. I hope he can live a long life. As she spoke, Empress Xiao looked at Princess Xinyang. Speaking of which, 9th granduncle and 9th grandaunt loved Princess Xinyang very much. They even brought Princess Xinyang to live with them for a while. 9th grandaunt praised Princess Xinyang for being sensible. She also said that it was a pity that Princess Xinyang wasn't her daughter. She dreamed of having such a beautiful daughter. Princess Xinyang's face turned pale. Marquis Xianping sensed her abnormality and turned to ask her, What's wrong? Princess Xinyang composed herself. It's nothing. I'm full. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. She put down her bowl and chopsticks, got up, and walked out. Empress Xiao looked at her unhappy back and was confused. Did I say something wrong? Marquis Xianping looked deeply at Princess Xinyang and said, I'm also full. I'll come see you and little Qi another day. Hey, you only ate a little. Empress Xiao frowned, puzzled. What's wrong with you two? Qin Fengwan. At the palace entrance, Marquis Xianping called Princess Xinyang. Princess Xinyang stood in front of the carriage, her pale face half-turned. I can't sit in the same carriage as you. Have the Empress send you another carriage. Marquis Xianping looked at her. Don't you just have to open the window and lift the curtain? Princess Xinyang pinched her fingers, her eyes red. Her voice trembled as she said, Not now. Marquis Xianping pushed the wheelchair toward her. She suddenly squatted on the ground, hugged her head, and screamed, Don't come over. Marquis Xianping stood up and walked over, looking at her with a frown. Qin Fengwan? Princess Xinyang's eyes turned black, and she fainted. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896426/108319763. HTML Genius. Memorize the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 599. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are available here. Ignoring the doctor's advice, Marquis Xianping abandoned his wheelchair and walked forward. He picked up the unconscious Princess Xinyang and carried her into the carriage. This scene happened too suddenly. Even Eugene didn't immediately regain her senses. The princess's problem had clearly lessened. So why did it suddenly become like this? Because she had already fainted. She didn't care about her earlier words about not sharing a carriage with anyone. Come up, Marquis Xianping said to Eugene. Yes. Eugene sat in the carriage. I'll do it, Marquis, Eugene said softly. Marquis Xianping looked at the pale Princess Xinyang in his arms. He considered the possibility of her waking up halfway and fainting from his fright. In the end, he nodded and handed Princess Xinyang to Eugene. Eugene hugged Princess Xinyang and gently held her hand. Marquis Xianping frowned. Although he and Princess Xinyang didn't interfere with each other, they were still husband and wife and had done it before. Now, he could only watch as she lay in another woman's arms. What was going on? Marquis Xianping's face was filled with irritation. He suddenly stood up and lifted the curtain. Eugene froze and asked, Marquis, what are you doing? Marquis Xianping said coldly, Get off the carriage and ride a horse. Otherwise, she'll faint from fright when she wakes up. But your injury. Before Eugene could finish, Marquis Xianping had already gotten off the carriage and robbed a servant's horse to ride. Xiao Heng had gone to the Ministry of Justice to deal with official business. Gu Jiao had been lying in bed for several days. Today, she could finally move freely. She first went to the courtyard to loosen her muscles and bones. Then, she picked up the red tasseled spear and practiced a set of spear techniques. Martial arts had to be practiced every day. Otherwise, it would be easy to become rusty. Halfway through her practice, Marquis Xianping and Princess Xinyang returned. Gu Jiao knew that they had entered the palace. When they left, they sat in the same carriage. When they came back, it was Marquis Xianping riding a horse and Princess Xinyang sitting in a carriage. Did they have a fight? Marquis Xianping calmly dismounted and threw the horsewhip to the maidservant guarding the door. Then he said to Gu Jiao, who was in the courtyard, The princess has fainted. Go and take a look. Oh. Gu Jiao put away the red tasseled spear and looked around. Give it to me. Marquis Xian Ping extended his hand towards Gu Jiao and took her red-tasseled spear. Gu Jiao glanced at his waist and thighs. Without saying anything, she walked toward the door. Gu Jiao carried the unconscious Princess Xinyang back to her room and placed her on the soft bed. Eugene followed in and asked worriedly, "Jiao Jiao, will the princess be all right?" Gu Jiao first looked at her pupils, which were normal. Then he put 3 fingers on her wrist and began to feel her pulse. "What's the situation? How did she faint?" Eugene lowered her eyes and said, "She fainted at the palace gates. Before she fainted, she went to Pure Flower's palace and Palace of Earthly Tranquility. I didn't go with her, so I don't know what happened. When she came out of Palace of Earthly Tranquility, her complexion didn't look good. When we arrived at the palace gates, the princess said to the Marquis that she didn't want to ride in the same carriage as the Marquis. The Marquis asked the princess a few questions, and then the princess fainted." "She fainted when he asked her? Did he say something that made her angry?" Gu Jiao undid Princess Xinyang's lapels and tightly bound belt so that she could breathe better. Princess Xinyang's angina had long been cured, so her fainting had nothing to do with angina. Instead, it seemed that she had fainted because she had been provoked. Eugene's words were clearly hiding something. After Gu Jiao undid Princess Xinyang's clothes, she pulled over a thin blanket and covered her. She turned to look at Eugene. "Aunt Eugene, if you don't tell me the truth, it will be very difficult for me to make an accurate diagnosis for the princess." Eugene wanted to say something, but hesitated. After Marquis Xianping put away Gu Jiao's red-tasseled spear, he walked in. It was even more difficult for Eugene to speak. Gu Jiao pointed to a chair on the side. "Sit." Marquis Xianping was definitely the most disobedient patient. If she told him not to move, his wound would definitely swell again. The atmosphere in the room was very strange. Marquis Xianping looked at Eugene with a gaze that was so intense that Eugene couldn't breathe. Eugene looked at the unconscious Princess Xinyang and struggled internally. In the end, her desire to heal Princess Xinyang prevailed. She lowered her head and said slowly, "Princess Xinyang can't come into contact with men. Whenever a man gets too close to her, she will feel uncomfortable." "To what extent? How close? How uncomfortable?" Gu Jiao asked seriously. "That is..." Eugene could be considered an orderly person. After a short period of nervousness and confusion, she sorted out Princess Xinyang's situation. If it's outside, the limit is 3 steps. If it's inside, Princess Xinyang can't be in the same room as a man. Marquis Xianping frowned. So that time in the attic, she was really scared. She still refused to admit it. This happened a few months ago. At that time, Gu Jiao hadn't gone to the frontier fortress. Princess Xinyang fell down in the attic and was injured. Marquis Xianping went to save her, but she was scared out of her wits. Gu Jiao also arrived at the scene and saw Princess Xinyang's abnormality. But based on the situation at the time, Gu Jiao thought it was claustrophobia. "How long has she been in this situation?" Gu Jiao asked. Eugene shook her head. "I don't know. The princess didn't tell me. I only served the princess after the princess got married. At that time, she was already in such a condition. I tried to ask the princess, but the princess refused to say anything." Gu Jiao pondered. "After you came to the princess's side, has she always been like this? Or has her condition worsened or improved?" Eugene said truthfully, "In the past 2 years, she has improved a little. She can ride the same carriage with Marquis." In fact, Princess Xinyang had also ridden in the Yen State's pharmacist's carriage. But the Yen State's pharmacist's carriage didn't have curtains. The front and back were all open. It didn't look like a claustrophobic space. Marquis Xianping thought of the last few times he rode the same carriage with Princess Xinyang. But this Marquis doesn't see her as relaxed. So Marquis noticed? Eugene was surprised. Marquis Xianping coldly snorted. "What? So in your eyes, this Marquis is just a big uncouth man? You didn't notice any of these minor things?" Eugene bowed. Eugene misspoke. Marquis Xian Ping sternly said, I don't blame you. As a military general, men are indeed not as meticulous as you women. But this marquis is gifted. How can I be an ordinary person? Eugene, how can he stick gold on his face like this? Eugene could only pretend she didn't hear anything. She continued, it's not easy, but she can endure it. If she can't endure it, she will faint like today. Gu Jiao said, but husband and Long Yi seem to be fine. Eugene nodded slightly. Little Marquis and Long Yi are exceptions. Marquis Xianping was unhappy. Forget about Xiaohong. He was her son. But why was Long Yi an exception? Eugene hurriedly explained. Long Yi wasn't able to get close to the princess from the start. It's just that little Marquis likes Long Yi too much and always pesters Long Yi. After Long Yi got along with the princess and little Marquis for a long time, the princess slowly started to see him as a child. So in Qin Fenghuan's eyes, Xiao Ji was a serious and majestic man. Marquis Xianping raised his eyebrows. Wait, there's still something wrong. Eugene looked at Marquis Xianping and said earnestly, Marquis, the princess doesn't mean to dislike you. She just can't get along with men. Please don't blame her. Marquis Xianping frowned and muttered, so that night she really ate the wrong medicine. Marquis, what did you say? Eugene didn't hear, clearly. Marquis Xianping said indifferently, nothing. So he was trying to make an antidote for a woman? Gu Jiao finished measuring Princess Xinyang's blood pressure and said, Aunt Eugene said that the princess's condition has improved in the past 2 years, but she suddenly fainted today. She must have suffered some trauma in the palace. Marquis, do you remember? Of course, Marquis Xianping had an impression. It was only after Empress Xiao mentioned old Liang and his wife that Princess Xinyang started to feel strange. After leaving Vermilion Bird Avenue, Marquis Xianping returned to his estate. Steward Liu didn't go to war and hadn't seen his master for several months. He was so excited that his eyes shone. Marquis, you're finally back. Enough. Marquis Xianping waved his hand impatiently and sat on a chair. Do you know old Liang? Steward Liu said, I know. His Majesty and Princess Xinyang's 9th great-uncle. Why did Marquis suddenly ask about him? Marquis Xianping said, investigate him and old Liang Wangfei. Steward Liu asked, can this little one ask why? Marquis Xianping gave him a sharp look, and Steward Liu shrunk his neck resentfully. This little one can't. There's no need to investigate everything. That would take too much time. Investigating information was the same as going into battle to kill the enemy. Marquis Xianping thought for a moment and said, investigate everything related to Princess Xinyang. Steward Liu had an extremely speechless expression. Marquis, you beat around the bush. If you want to investigate Princess Xinyang, just say it. Marquis Xianping said indifferently, what? This Marquis can't investigate? Steward Liu smiled embarrassedly. Of course you can. You're the Marquis. Who can't you investigate? However, you don't need to investigate. If you want to know anything, just ask me. I came from old Liang's estate. Marquis Xianping's mouth twitched as he looked at him. You have this kind of experience? Steward Liu coughed lightly. I'm not an important person. In old Liang's estate, I was just a handyman. Later, old Liang moved to his fief to build an estate. I didn't follow. He didn't bring you. Marquis Xianping exposed him. Steward Liu put on a fake smile. At the time, he was still young. He was just a lowly handyman. Naturally, he didn't have the right to follow him to his fief. Marquis Xianping continued, then tell me about old Liang and his wife. They doted on Princess Xinyang. Is it true? Steward Liu said, without hesitation, it's true. It's truer than real gold. Old Liang loved to listen to music. He had an opera troupe in his estate. I was young then, only 8 years old. I came in with the opera troupe. After the opera troupe dispersed, I didn't leave. I stayed behind to be a handyman. When I was in the estate, I heard that old Liang and old Liang's wife doted on the previous emperor's 7th princess. At the time, Princess Xinyang hadn't reached marriageable age and didn't have a title. She was ranked 7th, so the servants called her 7th princess. Steward Lu continued, Old Liang and his wife often visited Princess Xinyang in the palace. They didn't have a daughter or a granddaughter, so they always doted on Princess Xinyang. Marquis Xianping said, I know this. I heard that they even brought Princess Xinyang to their estate for a short stay. Steward Lu said excitedly, That's right. There was such a thing. The opera troupe dispersed because of Princess Xinyang. What do you mean? Marquis Xianping frowned. Steward Lu recalled for a while and said, I remember. Princess Xinyang was only 6 or 7 years old that year. She came to stay in the manor for a short while. Old Liang Wangfei specially ordered the opera troupe to put on a few plays that children like to watch. The troupe leader arranged. I don't remember what he arranged. I only remember that I took a knife and walked around the stage. She liked to watch operas? Marquis Xianping had never seen her listen to operas in all these years. Steward Lu shook his head. Now that I think about it, I feel that the princess didn't like it at the time. She sat quietly between King Liang and the princess consort. The two of them each held one of her hands lovingly. The maidservants below the stage were all laughing, but she was the only one who was expressionless. Marquis Xianping's eyes darkened. How did the disbanding of the opera troupe have anything to do with her? Steward Lu said. One day, Princess Xinyang suddenly came to the opera troupe late at night. The troupe leader asked her why she was here, but she didn't say anything. The troupe leader thought that she wanted to watch operas, so he went on stage and performed a few operas for her. Then, the troupe leader said to her, 7th princess, it's getting late. Can we sing again tomorrow? These events had happened so long ago that Steward Lu couldn't remember them clearly. But for some reason, when he suddenly thought about it today, Princess Xinyang's expression at that time became incomparably clear in his mind. She seemed to be pleading. Steward Lu said in a daze. But she still left in the end. She left alone. The next day, news of Princess Xinyang breaking her leg came from the estate. It was said that she fell and injured herself on the way back from the opera troupe. Old Liang's wife blamed everything on the opera troupe and disbanded the opera troupe without any explanation. Marquis Xianping muttered to himself for a moment, then said, Then let me ask you, did anyone in the estate bully her? Steward Lu said without hesitation, Of course not. King Liang and his wife doted on the princess very much. No one dared to bully her. I remember that once, for some reason, old Liang Zare got into an argument with the princess and pushed her to the ground. It was grass, so it didn't hurt. But when old Liang found out, he hung his own son up and beat him up. Marquis Xianping said thoughtfully, Qin Fengwan's personality isn't very likable. Of all the princesses, she's the most boring and unlike a child. King Liang and his wife don't like the lively and cute Ningen, and they don't like the educated and reasonable Diqing, but they like her? Steward Lu smiled. Princesses are the prettiest. That's true. Of all the princesses, Princess Xinyang was the prettiest since she was young. In the afternoon, Marquis Xianping still went to Vermilion Bird Avenue. Gu Jiao was brewing medicine in the small kitchen. Marquis Xianping walked over and asked Gu Jiao, She hasn't woken up yet? Gu Jiao threw a piece of ginger into the medicine pot. She woke up once, drank the medicine, and went back to sleep. Marquis Xianping's eyes focused. Can her illness be cured? Gu Jiao said, Mental illness needs mental medicine. Mental medicine. Qin Fengwan, what's your mental medicine? After Gu Jiao finished brewing the medicine, she warmed it on the stove and reminded Yujin to drink the medicine when the princess woke up. This medicine was to be taken before meals. Are you going out? Yujin asked. I'm going back for a while, Gu Jiao said. Yujin smiled. You've stayed here for a few days, so it's time to go back and take a look. I'll take care of the princess, so don't worry. Yujin prepared a carriage for Gu Jiao. On the way back to Jishui Alley, they would pass by Lu Yisheng's house. When they passed by the alley, Gu Jiao said to the coachman, "Stop for a moment. I have something to do." "Yes, Dr. Gu." The coachman stopped the carriage at the entrance of the alley. Gu Jiao only wanted to see if Lu Yixing had returned, so she didn't have much hope. Who knew that before she could knock on the door, a white figure would rush over from the wall and rush into her arms? Little sure, Gu Jiao hugged the little fatty in her arms. The little fatty snuggled up to her in her arms. Gu Jiao curled her lips. "Who's here?" Lu Yixing pulled open the wooden door from the courtyard and saw Gu Jiao outside. Gu Jiao was dressed in green and still looked like a young girl, but there was a hint of killing spirit between her brows. Lu Yixing's gaze froze. Gu Jiao said, "You're back." She said she was back. This meant she knew he had gone out earlier. Lu Yixing explained, "When Mama is old, so I sent her back to the countryside to return to her roots." When Mama was the old servant who used to serve in the courtyard. She was old and weak, so it was difficult for her to move around. Lu Yixing took her to live in the countryside for a period of time. Gu Jiao suddenly understood. "I see." Then Lu Yixing said, "She passed away. Her children were all gone, and it was Lu Yixing who sent her off. She passed away in her sleep. She passed away peacefully." Lu Yixing stepped aside. "Come in and have a seat." Gu Jiao carried the little fatty into the courtyard. "I was just passing by today. I didn't expect you to be at home. Yuan Tang asked me to bring you something. I'll bring it to you later." Lu Yixing brought Gu Jiao into the central room and poured her a cup of tea. Someone was cooking in the backyard. It was Anu, the last servant, by his side. Gu Jiao's eyes fell on the several boxes on the chair. "Did you just come back, or are you leaving again?" Lu Yixing followed her gaze and looked at his and Anu's luggage, saying, "I was actually going to find you. I'm going to say goodbye to you." Gu Jiao's expression froze. "You're leaving the capital?" "Yes." Lu Yixing smiled with relief. "I'm leaving, but I may not only leave the capital. You're leaving Zhao country," Gu Jiao said. Lu Yixing smiled helplessly. "I can't help it. Who told me to lose a bet with someone? I still understand the principle of accepting defeat." Gu Jiao said, "So you still remember?" Lu Yixing took out the 3 hairpin flowers from the brocade bag. "I always remember, but when Mama is not in good health, I can't leave her here alone." Gu Jiao nodded. It's like something he would do. Thinking of something, Lu Yixing said seriously, "But don't have too much hope. I'm just going to study. I won't be conferred the title of Marquis or Prime Minister." Gu Jiao didn't refute. Lu Yixing put away the 3 hairpin flowers one by one. "Before I leave, I have a question to ask you." Gu Jiao said, "Go ahead." Lu Yixing hesitated for a moment, then gathered his courage and asked, Why are you so good to me? Is it really just because I'm a patient of the clinic?" "No," Gu Jiao said. Lu Yixing's eyes lit up. Then, Gu Jiao curved her lips. "You've already asked a question." Lu Yixing choked, and after a long time, he smiled bitterly. "That's true." Gu Jiao saw a bamboo flute standing on the box. "Do you like to play the flute?" Lu Yixing said warmly, "Yes." Gu Jiao said, "Oh, when are you leaving?" Lu Yixing said, "We'll leave in 2 hours. My identity is special, so it's inconvenient for me to leave the city when there are many people." Gu Jiao nodded and looked at him. "Is the carriage ready?" Lu Yixing smiled. "It's ready." Gu Jiao said, "Then I'll go and get the things from Yuan Tang for you." Lu Yixing opened his mouth. "You don't have to make a special trip. I'll ask Anu to go and get it for you." "Okay." On an ordinary night, Lu Yixing, who had lived in the capital for 22 years, finally gathered his courage and got on the carriage to leave. He was not allowed to leave the capital, so he spent some money and used some tricks. He left through the west gate. He didn't know if he would be able to come back, but he had to go. When he passed by the Phoenix Pavilion, he suddenly heard the melodious sound of a guqin. Lu Yixing felt his heart tremble. He pulled the curtain of the carriage tightly, but just as he was about to lift it, he suddenly stopped. Anu turned her head and gestured with her hands, asking him if he wanted to get off the carriage. He looked in the direction of the sound of the guqin and hesitated, but he shook his head and said, "Slow down the carriage." Anu slowed down the carriage. The sound of the guqin faintly came, like the sound of the ninth heaven, like the sound of a mountain stream. He had never heard such a melodious sound of the guqin in his life. Even the palace musicians couldn't play a fraction of it. Lu Yisheng slowly took out the bamboo flute in his hand, put it to his lips, and chased after the sound of the guqin. She was sending him off, sending off a confidant with a song. She thanked him for burying her in his previous life, and he thanked her for recognizing his worth in this life. Digression, looking for a monthly ticket. Moi, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896422826/10829791. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 600. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet. Jiao Jiao. On the carriage back, little Jing Kong excitedly swung his short legs beside Gu Jiao. "You play the zither so well. You play better than my master." Gu Jiao asked, "Does your master know how to play the zither?" Little Jing Kong said with disdain, "He knows how to play, but his playing is terrible." Gu Jiao imagined the scene of an old monk with a white beard playing the zither with slow movements, but the sound of the zither was out of tune. She said, "Your master has a wide range of hobbies." Little Jing Kong waved his hand. "It's nothing. My master loves to drink." "A monk can drink? Is your master a monk?" Gu Jiao wiped the zither case on her lap with a handkerchief and said, "He's old. It's better not to drink." Little Jing Kong nodded like a chick pecking at rice. "Yes, yes." The carriage arrived at the city gate, which was closed. However, Gu Jiao had a token in her hand, so the guards opened the gate for her. When they passed through the gate, little Jing Kong suddenly asked, "Jiao Jiao, why did we come so far to play the zither?" Gu Jiao said, "I'm sending a friend here. He's going on a long journey." Little Jing Kong tilted his head and asked, "Is it the friend who plays the flute?" "He plays the flute very well." "Love me, love my dog." Gu Jiao smiled. "Yes, I think it's good too." Children's focus was different from adults. If Xiao Hong was here, he would definitely ask who the friend was, a man or a woman. Little Jing Kong said seriously, "It must be Jiao Jiao's very good friend. Will he come back?" "I don't know." Gu Jiao truly did not know that in the dream she had when she returned to the Marquis's estate, Lu Yisheng had returned. But now, the trajectory of everything was not the same as in the dream. No one could guarantee that they would meet again in the future. The city gate slowly closed. Gu Jiao lifted the curtains and turned around to take one last look at the official road outside the city. Goodbye, Lu Xiang. Lu Yisheng was a poor man. All he had was a suitcase and a basket of books given to him by Gu Jiao. He took Lil Shur away because he missed her. The house was left empty. No one was hired to take care of it, and it was not sold. The capital would not change because of Lu Yisheng's disappearance. Few people in the capital cared about him, so no one would discover that he was gone. Perhaps many years later, on a sunny afternoon, in a bustling tea house, someone would mention it on a whim. "Huh? I haven't seen Lu Yisheng recently. He's not dead, is he? He's a descendant of the Lu family. If he's dead, he's dead." However, all these had nothing to do with Lu Yisheng. He took her little sure, her trust and expectations for him, and started the long voyage to fight against fate. Goodbye, Miss Gu. When Gu Jiao returned to Puai Shui Alley, little Jing Kong had fallen asleep in her arms. It was already late when she went out. She did not plan to take the little guy out, but the little guy stuck to her, so she took him with her. The carriage stopped. Gu Jiao lifted the curtain and was about to carry little Jing Kong out of the carriage. A strong arm stretched over and took little Jing Kong from Gu Jiao's arms. Gu Jiao looked at the familiar deerskin gauntlet on the hand, blinked, and said, "Gu Chongqing. Call me Big Brother." Gu Chongqing said. Gu Jiao jumped out of the carriage. Gu Chongqing carried little Jing Kong, who was sleeping soundly, into the room with his sister. It was midnight. Everyone in the family had gone to bed, but Xiaoheng did not come back. Too many things had happened recently. First, it was Qin Fengyan, then it was Grand Tutor Zhuang. There were too many official documents to write, so Xiaoheng had to stay in the Ministry of Justice tonight. After entering the central room, Gu Jiao took little Jing Kong and put him on the bed in the west room. Jiao Jiao, it sounds so good. Little Jing Kong probably dreamed of Gu Jiao's music, and his little mouth muttered. Gu Jiao pulled the quilt over and covered him. After tucking in the corner of the quilt, she returned to the central room and sat down with Gu Chongqing on the chair. "When did you come back?" she asked. "I just arrived. I passed by here on my way back, so I came to have a look." Gu Chongqing said, "Actually, I should have come back long ago, but I met some of your old friends on the way, so I stayed for a few more days." "My old friends? Did she have any old friends in the north?" Gu Chongqing went to the county in the north to visit the families of the martyrs, and he also investigated Qin Fengyan's background. She came from Yuzhou, which was in the opposite direction. Gu Chongqing looked at Gu Jiao with his sister's filter. Gu Jiao was expressionless, but he felt that his sister was cold and cute. He laughed and said, "It should be your old friends with little Jing Kong." Why was it related to Jing Kong again? Gu Chongqing coaxed, "Call me Big Brother, and I'll tell you." What kind of tone was this to tease a 3-year-old? Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. "Did you meet the monks in our temple?" Gu Chongqing. His sister was too smart. It was not good. Gu Chongqing smiled helplessly. Since he had guessed it, he had to admit it. "When I passed by Lihua Town, I met the monks of the temple near your village. I was feeding the horses at the post station, and several young monks about the same age as Jing Kong came to beg for alms. I heard that their accent was quite similar to when you and Xiaoshun first came to the capital, so I asked them where they were from. They said that they were from Pingcheng Prefecture in Yuzhou." When I heard that, I thought, "Isn't that the place where you grew up?" So I asked them if they had heard of Qingchuan Village. They said that Qingchuan Village was at the foot of the mountain behind their temple, and a young monk in their temple who fainted for meat was adopted by a family in Qingchuan Village. They also said that the person who adopted him was a little fairy with hair on her face. Hair on her face. Gu Jiao couldn't help laughing. It was indeed the accent of those young monks. Gu Jiao said one by one, they were Jingxin, Jingfan, and Jingshan. Gu Chongqing was surprised. "You remember them?" Gu Jiao said, "I talked to them." The 3 plastic playmates from Jing Kong looked forward to going down the mountain every day. They didn't even tell Jing Kong that they couldn't eat meat when they went down the mountain. They were afraid that Jing Kong wouldn't leave. However, Jing Kong didn't hold back. They snatched food from the 3 playmates every day. Gu Jiao asked curiously, "How did you meet them?" Gu Chongqing said, "They followed the abbot of the temple to participate in the Dharma conference and traveled half of Zhao country. They were in Yi City during the war at the frontier fortress, but they didn't know that you were in the Gu army." Gu Jiao said, "Oh, I really miss them." Gu Chongqing continued, "They took me to see the abbot. The abbot asked a lot of things about little Jing Kong. He was surprised that you didn't send little Jing Kong back." Gu Jiao asked curiously, "Why should I send Jing Kong back?" Gu Chongqing thought, "Probably because he's a little troublemaker." Gu Chongqing thought of something and said, "The abbot said that he will go back to the temple soon. Please treat Jing Kong well." She must not send him back to the temple. Gu Jiao asked, "Did you see an old monk? The kind with a white beard. His back is a little stooped, and his steps are a little staggered. Is he deaf? His hands are shaking, and his eyes are blurred?" After all, he couldn't even play the zither. Gu Chongqing shook his head decisively. "No. Oh, right. The abbot asked me to bring you something. He said it's for Jing Kong." "Oh." Gu Jiao looked at him. Gu Chongqing went outside and took a bundle from a saddle. He took out a small box and handed it to Gu Jiao. "I haven't opened this. I don't know what's inside." The box was not locked. It was simply fastened. It was obvious that the abbot trusted the young master of the Gu family army, Gu Chongqing. Gu Jiao did not open it. Instead, she went into the room and put it on the bedside of little Jing Kong. If the little guy knew that the abbot had brought him a gift, he would be very happy. Gu Jiao came out of the west room. Gu Chongqing stood at the door and looked at her deeply. "I came here today to tell you something." "What is it?" Gu Jiao asked. "I may have to leave Zhao country for a while," Gu Chongqing said. "Why do you have to leave?" Gu Jiao was confused. "Did you make an appointment? Both of you had to leave." Gu Chongqing raised his hand and stroked the hair on her temples. "To find a way to cure you. You are my sister. I don't want to see you lose control in blood and killing intent. I also don't want to see you hurt yourself to restrain your desire to kill. So even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of fire, I must cure you. When I was talking to the abbot, I mentioned your situation by accident." Gu Chongqing said, "The abbot said that there may be a way to cure you in Yen Kingdom." Gu Jiao was slightly surprised. "Yen Kingdom?" Gu Chongqing said, "In fact, Chen Kingdom is also famous for its medical skills. But I think you are already the best doctor in the world. If you can't cure yourself, it may not be a problem of medical skills. There are many capable people in Yen Kingdom. I want to go there to try my luck." Gu Jiao looked at him. "You can't go to Yen Kingdom." As the young master of the Gu family, he had to ask for permission to leave the capital, let alone go abroad. Obviously, the emperor would not agree to let him go to Yen Kingdom because he couldn't go at all. Gu Chongqing smiled. "I can go. At worst, I won't be the young master of the Gu family." Gu Jiao retracted her gaze. "Yen Kingdom is not a place you can go as you wish." Gu Chongqing stroked the top of her head and smiled dotingly. "Don't worry. I have my ways." Brother's style was very good. He treated Gu Jiao like Xiao Hung treated little Jing Kong. Gu Jiao's face darkened. He couldn't lie to her like this. "Okay, I'm leaving. Call me Big Brother." He wanted to be the first brother, she acknowledged. Gu Jiao looked at him with a serious face. Her whole face said, "How can you talk to your little granduncle like that?" Gu Chongqing was speechless. Gu Chongqing was serious about going to Yen Kingdom to treat his sister. With his current status, there was only one way to go to Yen Kingdom, to the underground martial arts arena. The underground martial arts arena was built by the people Shang. They used the arena to recruit talents and collect information from other countries. Even the imperial court could not interfere. As long as he was in the top 3 of the master ranking, he would be qualified to enter Yen Kingdom. Gu Jiao slept late. When she woke up, it was already dawn. Little Jing Kong was already practicing boxing in the backyard. "Kill." He punched out and a row of chickens fell down. They were quite cooperative. Gu Jiao dressed neatly and went to the backyard to wash up. Xiao Hung was also washing his face. This person was too good-looking. Everything he did was pleasing to the eye. He wrung a towel and made it look like an ink painting. "Did you just come back from the yamen?" Gu Jiao greeted him. He was still wearing the official uniform of the Ministry of Justice. Unexpectedly, Xiao Hung ignored her. Didn't he hear her? Gu Jiao's eyes moved and she came to his left. "Husband." Xiao Hung turned right to dry the towel. Gu Jiao blinked strangely and went to his right. "Husband." Xiao Hung turned left to pour the water in the wooden basin. This time, If Gu Jiao still couldn't tell that he was throwing a tantrum, it wouldn't make sense. She thought about it and realized that she hadn't done anything. Xiao Heng just came back to change his clothes. He had to go to the Hanlin Academy later. Working in 2 departments was so tiring. After he left, Gu Jiao called little Jing Kong, who was practicing boxing. "What happened to your brother-in-law?" Little Jing Kong scratched his head. "Nothing. He's fine." Gu Jiao looked at the empty door. "Didn't you notice that he was angry? Is he angry with you or with me?" "Angry?" Little Jing Kong scratched his mushroom head and his eyes lit up. "Ah, I know. Bad brother-in-law must be jealous of me." "Jealous of you?" Gu Jiao looked at the little guy suspiciously. Little Jing Kong proudly shook his little head. "That's right. I went out of the city with Jiao Jiao yesterday. I even heard Jiao Jiao play the guqin. Bad brother-in-law doesn't exist. He has never heard Jiao Jiao play the guqin. I was the first to hear it. Jiao Jiao likes me the most." Gu Jiao did not bother to correct him. What did you say to your brother-in-law?" Little Jing Kong said seriously. "I said, Jiao Jiao and I went out of the city to see off Jiao Jiao's friends. Jiao Jiao played the guqin to see them off. Jiao Jiao and his friends played the guqin in harmony. It was unparalleled in the world. That was not how the guqin and the guqin should be played. Also, he played the flute." Gu Jiao closed her eyes and slapped her forehead. She screwed up. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_89642_1082780022. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bqg mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 601. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. The accident happened too quickly, like a tornado. Princeton had lived next door for so long without a fire in his backyard. He had only done it for Lu Yisheng, but the result was a fire burning his eyebrows. Jing Kong, oh Jing Kong, you really know how to trick me. On this side, Gu Jiao was thinking about how to coax her husband. On the other side, Xiao Heng was called into the palace by Empress Xiao. Aunt. Xiao Heng saluted to Empress Xiao. "There are no outsiders here. Don't be so courteous. Come and sit." Empress Xiao said to Xiao Heng. Xiao Heng obeyed and sat next to Empress Xiao. Empress Xiao looked at his slightly furrowed brows and asked, Heng, what's wrong? You don't seem very happy. Are you worried about your mother?" "My mother?" Xiao Heng had been busy at the Board of Punishments all night and did not know about Princess Xianyang. Empress Xiao asked, "You don't know? Your mother fainted at the entrance of the palace yesterday. I called you over to ask how she is." Although she and Princess Xianyang did not like each other, she was still Xiao Heng's mother. Xiao Heng's eyes flashed with worry. "I don't know. I was at the Board of Punishments yesterday and did not go to my mother's side. I will go take a look in a bit." Empress Xiao grabbed his wrist. "Don't worry. I still have something to tell you." Today, Marquis Xianping did not sleep in. He got up early and went to Zhuke Street. Unexpectedly, there were a few carriages parked in front of Princess Xianyang's residence. This was very strange. After all, aside from Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng, Princess Xianyang did not have many visitors. These luxurious carriages clearly did not belong to the young couple. The driver brought the wheelchair over. Marquis Xianping frowned. The driver quickly said, "It was Dr. Gu's orders." She said that if you did not sit, to tell Lord Xiao. Marquis Xianping sat in the wheelchair with a dark expression. Just as he sat down, a clamor came from Princess Xinyang's courtyard. Soon after, Eugene and a few servant girls from the courtyard came out with bags of various sizes. As she walked, she looked back as if she was saying to someone, "You should take these things back. We appreciate the old princess's kindness, but we won't accept the gift." A stout nanny followed them out, surrounded by a few maids. She used her hand to block the gifts that Eugene intended to return and said with a smile, "These are the old princess's kind intentions. She specially brought them over from Feng. How can I not accept it?" Eugene smiled politely. "Gue Momo, you really can't accept it. The princess has just taken up the position of regent, and Gue Momo also understands that with the princess's current status, she has to be more cautious in dealing with people. She had once instructed us that no matter who comes to give a gift, we must not accept it." Gue Momo glared at her and said, "How can those people be compared to the old princess consort?" The old princess consort watched the princess grow up and has a deep friendship with the princess. She is family. Eugene maintained a decent smile. "Gue Momo, please don't make things difficult for us." Gue Momo's smile faded. "It's fine if I don't make things difficult for you. Go and report to the princess that the old princess's people have come to see her." Eugene said in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing, "The princess has not been feeling well recently. She did not sleep last night and only rested when it was close to dawn. I'm afraid it would be inappropriate to wake the princess up." Gue Momo chuckled. "I don't know when it was the turn of a servant to make decisions for Princess Xinyang." A servant girl at the side said, "Lord Eugene is the deputy prefect of the princess's residence and has an official title in the imperial court. Nanny, be careful with your words." Gue Momo looked coldly at Eugene and raised her chin. "All right then, I will wait here for the princess to wake up. Who is so noisy?" Marquis Xianping sat in a wheelchair and was slowly pushed over by the coachman. Eugene heard his voice and her eyes lit up. She turned and bowed. "Marquis." "Marquis?" Gue Momo looked at the handsome man in the wheelchair and could not help but be stunned. This is Princess Xinyang's son-in-law? After so many years, why hasn't he changed at all? Gue Momo was an old servant of the old Liang Wangfei and had lived in the capital for many years. Naturally, she had seen Marquis Xianping. However, she never expected that time would not hasten him. "Marquis, this servant is..." Gue Momo was only halfway through her sentence when Marquis Xianping grabbed the bundle in Eugene's hands and threw it at Gue Momo's feet without any trace of politeness. Gue Momo was stunned again. The servant girls saw the Marquis take the lead and threw the gifts on the ground with their backs straightened. Humph! Gue Momo and the others were thrown back a few steps. This was a slap in the face. They had come a long way to deliver gifts to Princess Xinyang. Not only did she not want them, she even threw them out. Gue Momo immediately said angrily, "Marquis, we are people of the Liang Wangfei. This old servant came on the old Liang Wangfei's orders." Just how powerful was the old Liang Wangfei's and old Liang Wangfei statuses? When the current Empress Dowager saw the two of them, she had to respectfully call them uncle and aunt. Marquis Xianping and Princess Xinyang were of the same generation. How dare he? Marquis Xianping dared. When he heard Gue Momo's threat, he did not even lift his eyelids. He only lazily leaned back in his chair. Gue Momo was clearly standing and he was sitting, but he had the aura of being number one in the world. Marquis Xianping arrogantly said, "Still not leaving? Are you waiting for this Marquis to beat people up?" Gue Momo was furious. "You." A servant beside her said eccentrically, "Forget it, Nanny. Marquis Xianping has been arrogant for more than a day or two. At worst, we can go back and report to the old Liang Wangfei and let her judge before the emperor. Let's see if someone is bullying the old Liang Wangfei because he is no longer working in the capital and doesn't put our Liang Wangfei in their eyes." This was naturally a threat to Marquis Xianping. They did not believe that Marquis Xianping was not afraid of the old Liang Wangfei or the emperor. Who would have thought that Marquis Xianping would not even use his pestle? Eugene pursed her lips and smiled. She said to Gue Momo and the others, "My Marquis has just made a military achievement. Do you think that the emperor will touch him at this critical juncture? Just drive out a few servants. It's not like he's driving out your Wangfei." My Marquis. This was the first time Eugene had addressed Marquis Xianping this way. Marquis Xianping raised his eyebrows. "Did you hear that? Hurry up and scram." Gue Momo gritted her teeth. "Don't swish." Marquis Xianping pulled out the long knife behind his wheelchair. Murder. Gue Momo was so scared that she covered her head and fled. The others also went straight to their carriages, forgetting to bring their gifts. Eugene instructed the servant girls to throw these eyesores back into their carriages, and the group left dejectedly. Marquis Xianping threw the long knife to the coachman and pushed the wheelchair into the courtyard. He went to Princess Xinyang's room. As expected, she was not asleep at all. She sat at the head of the bed with a pale face. The wheelchair could not get in. Marquis Xianping thought for a moment, stood up, moved the wheelchair over the threshold, and sat on it again. He came to the bed, and Princess Xinyang turned her back to him. This meant that she refused to communicate with him. Marquis Xianping thought of her illness and didn't dare to get too close. He looked around and made sure that the doors and windows were open before saying, "Qin Fengwan, don't ask," Princess Xinyang said softly. Marquis Xianping hesitated and swallowed the words at the tip of his tongue. "Fine, I won't ask. I just came to tell you that you're my Xiao Ji's wife. No one can bully you." With that, he planned to push the wheelchair out. However, his wheelchair driving skills were not very good, and he couldn't turn it around after pushing for a long time. He simply stood up and used his hands to grab the wheelchair and turn it around. Just as he put the wheelchair on the ground, he heard Princess Xinyang mutter, "I'm still a princess." Marquis Xianping frowned. Marquis Xianping didn't stay here for long, afraid that it would cause her discomfort. However, Marquis Xianping didn't expect that as soon as he left, old Princess Consort Liang would come knocking. This time, she came to visit in person. Old Princess Consort Liang was old, and her body wasn't as strong as before. It was inconvenient for her to move around. Although she could still move around, she mostly sat in a wheelchair. The doors and windows in the room were tightly shut, and the light was dim. Only Princess Xinyang and old Princess Consort Liang were in the room. Princess Xinyang sat on the bed with a pale face and a quilt covering her legs. Old Princess Consort Liang sat in the wheelchair in front of the bed. Her two old and skinny hands held Princess Xinyang's hands tightly as she called out in a choked voice, "Nan Nan." Nan Nan was Princess Xinyang's pet name. Princess Xinyang listened with a pained expression. She didn't dare to go in, but she also didn't dare to openly eavesdrop. She could only sneak closer to the door and try to prick up her ears. She knew she shouldn't do this, but if she didn't do this, how could she understand the princess's illness? She heard Princess Xinyang say softly, "Don't call me that. It's disgusting." Disgusting? This reaction, Eugene heard old Princess Consort Liang say guiltily, Nan, are you still angry at Granduncle and Grandaunt? Do you blame Granduncle and Grandaunt for not taking good care of you? Back then, you broke your leg in the manor and were trapped in the well for a night before being found. It was Granduncle and Grandaunt's negligence. Granduncle and Grandaunt should have put in more effort. Also, your marriage with Marquis Xianping. He's an unreliable person. If I had known, Granduncle and Grandaunt would have stopped this marriage no matter what. Enough. Don't be angry. If Granduncle and Grandaunt did anything wrong, just say it. You can get angry at Granduncle and Grandaunt will accept it. Granduncle and Grandaunt suddenly went to the fief because we had no choice. Originally, we wanted to take you with us, but you're a princess in the end. You can't stay with us forever. Don't think that Granduncle and Grandaunt abandoned you. Princess Xinyang was about to collapse. Some truths could never be spoken. But it wasn't that the other party didn't know. It was because she didn't dare to speak the truth. Old Princess Consort Liang used a handkerchief to wipe her tears. She cried sincerely and guiltily. You can blame granduncle and grandaunt however you want, but your granduncle is old and about to die. Before he leaves, he wants to see you. Your granduncle loves you the most. Since he used to love you so much, you should go and see him for the last time. Princess Xinyang clutched her chest and retched. Wretch. Her eyes were red as she glared fiercely at her. How could this person have the face? How could she have the face to say such things? Princess Xinyang was so angry that her entire body trembled. Old Princess Consort Liang did not give up. She pleaded with a sorrowful expression, but her eyes were filled with a woman's jealousy and disdain. Princess Xinyang could not hold on any longer. Her body trembled violently, and large drops of tears fell down. She wanted to escape, but she had nowhere to go, as if she was trapped by a demon. The world spun, and the sounds in her ears became slow and indistinct, until she heard old Princess Consort Liang scream, "Ah!" A tall and muscular figure strode in. His large, calloused hand grabbed old Princess Consort Liang's collar and dragged her out of the wheelchair. Like dragging a sack, he ignored old Princess Consort Liang's screams and dragged her all the way through the courtyard. Then, he threw her out of the door without a trace of politeness. Old Princess Consort Liang was old. With this drag and fall, she almost lost half her life. Princess Consort, Gue Momo, and the others scrambled over. Old Princess Consort Liang leaned weakly in Gue Momo's arms. She panted as she looked at the tyrannical man. Xian. Marquis Ping. Marquis Xian Ping looked down at her. This marquis respects the old and loves the young, but I do not respect old beasts. Everyone turned pale with fright. Was Marquis Xian Ping crazy? He actually dared to speak like this. Gue Momo looked at him angrily. Marquis Xian Ping, how dare you humiliate old Princess Consort Liang like this? Aren't you afraid of being beheaded? Marquis Xian Ping chuckled and kicked over, causing old Liang Wangfei and Nanny Gue to be turned upside down. Old Princess Consort Liang spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. Everyone was scared silly. They thought of the rumors in the capital. Marquis Xian Ping had always been the topic of conversation for the people in the capital. However, when they talked about him, they mostly talked about how dissolute he was and how shameless he was. As for his temper, no one criticized him. He rarely got angry with people. At most, he was shameless. He always laughed and pranked people. However, right now his entire person was covered in a layer of frost. He was like a long sword shining with cold light. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_89642826/108276573573. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku mobile reading website. zhbqg.com that you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.